Good evening. Welcome to the San Juan Bautista Planning Commission meeting. This is our regularly scheduled meeting of July 1, 2014. So stand with me. We'll pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Secretary will call the roll.
Ernest Franco.
Here.
David Medeiros.
Here.
Vanna Guevara.
Here.
Georgiana Galarte.
Here.
Pat Garrett.
Here.
Thank you.
We have a quorum?
Good deal.
We'll go with it. Okay, next is public comments. Anyone who has an issue they would like to address to the commission, this would be the time to do it. If there's an item on the agenda, please wait until that item comes up before you make your comments, so it'll be part of a continuous, complete record. This would be basically for anything that's not in the agenda. We will not dialogue with you, but we will take the information and act appropriately, whether it's refer it out or put it on the agenda for a later date. Is there anyone who would like to speak before the commission, to address the commission?
I have no public comment cards other than on an item.
Okay.
Your microphone needs speaker.
Sorry about that. Should we start again? Okay. Now we have a item called the informal project review. At this time, people with the proposed projects who would like to do something in the city of San Juan Bautista, before you make your final application, you might want to get some feedback with the commissioners. Now, we can't meet with you individually because that's a violation of the state law. But by making a presentation before the commission publicly, you can get some feedback, at which point you may want to go home and redo the whole project, or say, hey, this is more than they want, we'll give it to them. But now would be the time to make that presentation. Basically, hit staff, tell them you want to be on the agenda, and they will take care of you. Staff, we have something on 35 Washington Street.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. We do have an applicant here tonight for the informal project review for 35 Washington Street. You know, that project is a redevelopment as those structures had fire damage a couple months ago, and they're in the audience tonight. We kind of, in our staff report, more or less just recaptured what we had heard from a previous informal meeting or informal presentation back in May, and those comments we kind of had put into the staff report, also noting some of the information about the parking requirements. But I would like to invite the applicant to come up and let us know what they have come up with.
Okay, would the applicant step forward, please? Mr. McCandless?
Good afternoon. I have another copy.
Would you give your name for the record,
I'm
please?
sorry. My name is Charles Weston. I'm with Weston Miles Architects. I'm representing the McCandless Development Company. And I wanted to mention that I have a set here for the audience. So I'm going to give this back to the first person because I noted last time that it was difficult for them to get a handle on what we were discussing. So we've taken in the comments, of course, from our last meeting with you and have redesigned our site plan and proposal. You'll note the most significant thing is that we have two commercial spaces that were not in the original proposal. And I think that was one of the criteria that you wanted to see was some establishment of commercial spaces, so we've done that. You'll also notice that we've decreased the number of apartment units. Unfortunately, with all that I've just said, we've had to reduce the amount of parking as well. So That, in a sense, becomes an issue, I think, that we're trying to solve, but I believe, and we're trying to solve that with your help, but I believe that we've taken a reasonable approach to all the competing interests with regards to this property, the owners and the city of San Juan Bautista, and hopefully, after some dialogue here tonight, you'll agree with us that this is a good approach. So with that, I'm open to discussion or questions from you, though anything to do with the economics of the project, Greg McCandless is here and he'd like to talk to you about that aspect of it.
Okay. Commissioner, do you want to hear from the public first, or?
Let's hear from the public.
Okay, is anyone in the public who would like to speak for or against this issue? Providing information or informing the commission of anything?
I don't think anything's been presented to the public.
Oh.
We have no idea what has been presented.
Can you give us just a
Okay.
quick overview
I'll
for
do
that?
As everyone that lives in San Juan Bautista most likely knows, that there was a fire on Washington Street which consumed a large warehouse that essentially separated the residential house at the corner of 4th and the commercial with the adobe structure on 3rd. And with that, as you see right now, is a vacant lot. And it consumed pretty much all of the warehouse, the quasi-commercial aspects of the property, and did some damage to the commercial portions of the existing. Okay, thank you. Matt, can you go to one slide further up? So this is what it looks like now. This right now is a vacant lot where it used to be all commercial, and if you remember, it was all metal and pretty dilapidated and rusted, but it served as a place for a lighting store, and I'm not sure what else was there. But with that, these two portions of this existing this blue area building were damaged during fire. They're still habitable with some work which we plan to do to bring them back up to where they were before. This proposal then is requesting that we build a parking lot here, a common area here, and apartments along here, and this would be 2 stories. Matt, if you go up one slide, maybe down one slide or the beginning. Not necessarily. I think maybe just the one that shows the streetscape is pretty good. Yeah. That one. So if this one doesn't show to the corner, but this is part of the existing structure that did not burn significantly to the point where we had to take it down. But from this point to this point was a building that was burned to the point where it was unsafe and needed to be demolished and carted off, and so what we're proposing to do now is provide a parking lot between these two, apartment complex here that is in between the commercial structure where the restaurant was, and with this home right here. So that is what we're trying to accomplish at this time. And that one that I...
No, sir, speaking to the mic. You're speaking to the
I'm
commission.
sorry. So the plan that I handed off shows this, as well as the elevations, all the elevations of all sides of the proposed new building, and the narrative that we want to describe. So this is the existing that's there and will stay there, and this is our new, which we have some elements of it that are copied, but to a smaller scale from this building here, the adobe structure.
What is the height of your structure?
It's 18, about 24 feet from
And
this
what's the
point
height of the
to
one
this
on the
point.
What's the height of the one on the corner?
That's over 35 feet.
Oh, 35. Okay. Thank you.
I got a question. How big is the parking lot going to be for spacing, parking the cars in, plus the get out? You show, your plan here is not up to scale at all. It says 8 inches to the foot. It's not even that.
No, it would be if it was full size.
What's that?
It would be if it was full size. You got
That-
to reduce copies. So
That lot right now is 85 by 105, right?
right. These are all standard parking spaces, 9 by 18.
So how wide are the parking spots?
They're 9 feet this way, 18 feet that way.
And then you got 20 foot coming out the other side.
That, I believe, is, if it's dimensioned, Pat,
It's 20 feet.
20 feet.
Plus you have 5 feet in front of the parking spot. You got a garbage
Here I
container.
have- This is landscape here. That's
Then
what you're asking me about.
then you got a garbage container way down at the end. right?
Yes. And
You got a
then,
5-foot walk in front of the building and one in the back of the building.
right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 5 feet. These are stairs with parking, with bicycle underneath for access to the second story. This is intended to, for residents here to walk along here and come and then cross over to.
And then you have 10 units and 10 parking spots. Is that correct?
Yes.
So where we're gonna, most of the people rent a unit has 2 cars. So where are we gonna put the other 10 cars?
That's the crux of this problem, and it's not just in one that has this problem. It's that, well, I don't want to talk about the economics, but basically it's an economic problem, because with the fees, the construction, and the labor to build in California, specifically in our area, with the parking standards don't work.
Well,
And they don't work in any city.
because I'm concerned about this, because down at the Vallejo gas station, they built a bunch of apartments down there on both sides of the street. There's more cars than are on the property. There's not enough parking. And that's the main street coming into San Juan. Another concern I have here about this project is, you're on commercial property. Across the street, Hardin has bands at night that play to 2 o'clock. They got 2 bars that have bands that play. These people are gonna start complaining about the noise, what happens to all them businesses.
Rightly so.
Commissioners, comments? Oh, yeah, let's take one. Does anyone else in the public would like to make any comments on what they have seen so far? Okay, you all want to sign up with the secretary here? And any handout should also be given to the secretary?
Thank you, Carl.
Okay, comments will be limited to 3 minutes each, after which time we will let you know.
Commissioners, Caravon, 609 Third.
Put the red light on her.
Okay, no, I'm not going to talk long. If you want mixed use downtown, you know, living above commercial, which is what is the applicant is trying to do here, you know, there's no parking anywhere downtown. So I think they're right. I mean, some other solution has to be found if you want people to live above stores and commercials.
But see, his apartments are on the bottom too.
Pardon?
He's got apartments on the bottom and the top. There's no commercial on the bottom.
I thought there was
There is no
commercial.
No,
on the
that's
bottom.
all
That's an
apartments.
existing building.
No, our previous proposal did not show commercial. We've added 2 commercial
Yeah,
spaces.
there are 2 commercial spaces now.
Now.
They're added right here.
In the original building.
Yeah,
Oh, in the original building, okay.
right.
Well, still, if you're gonna have mixed use downtown, parking's always gonna be an issue. So, anyway, that's my comment.
Dan DeFreeze?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, since this is just concept review, I think that it might be a good idea to ask the applicant and his architect and designers to come back with a mixed-use plan. That street is zoned mixed use, as is 3rd Street, and mixed use is a great use, in my opinion. That's why we did it. All of the buildings on 3rd Street, and you can think of them, Hardines, Daisy's, the new Alicia building that we did, that's mixed use. Commercial on the bottom, residential on the top. It'll cut down presumably on the parking needs, Pat. And it also it's prime retail space. That's a good spot. One of the shop owners in that area is here tonight. Those are nice little shops for sales tax for the city, for the tourists. And there's no reason really why it shouldn't be mixed use. I can't think of, in my mind's eye, a purely 100% residential apartment building in the historic district now. And I don't know why we would go that direction and for what reason we would go that direction, to the exclusion of a really nice retail opportunity for downtown, for the tourists and for retail sales.
We want the retail.
Pardon
We
me?
want the retail.
On
The
the bottom, yeah.
previous iteration didn't have it, so he's got 2 now, which is good.
Well, in the existing building, no. But on the new building, it'd be pretty simple to just make it the bottom retail shops and apartments up top. That's what the Alicia building is. That's what all the buildings downtown are.
The last time we had this meeting, we suggested they put retail on the bottom of the buildings, and then they come back with this plan with all apartments on it.
And it might be economics, maybe they can get more in residential rental values than they can from retail space, but that shouldn't drive the decision of what's best for San Juan Bautista. What should drive that decision is what's best for our tourist experience, for sales tax to the city, and it's a very commercially viable location, as you all know. So some real cute shops on the bottom, some nice apartments on the top, boom, you're done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Larry Gerbrandt.
What about the shopkeeper?
I'm still confused as to where the 2 commercial spaces
Can I show
are.
it? Can I show them?
Yeah.
Well, let the applicant,
Watch out for your
Can I show them
microphone.
the commercial spot?
let the applicant do it.
Leave your mic here.
microphone.
Let the architect do it.
Because it appears that,
What they did is put the 2 commercial spots here were already existing.
oh, so they didn't,
You
so,
can add none over here.
right, okay, that's what was confusing me, was I didn't see any new commercial space, and are they just remodeling the existing building then?
Well, that part of the building never burnt, so at one time was part of the Chinese restaurant,
I see, so
the
it's,
upper start.
no square footage has been, commercial food, they just subdivided
Right.
the old Chinese, okay. That certainly wasn't what I heard expressed at the last review, that I think the overwhelming number in the audience wanted to see some commercial street facing in that building. And I agree with Dan that
And before they
This
had
is
12
totally
parking
out of
spots,
character.
now they got 10.
That's not
apartment building is just totally out of character in the middle of the commercial district. And that's about as commercial as we get in San Juan Bautista.
Thank you.
However, it's all one parcel, isn't it?
Yes.
I would just want to add, I think this is from the land use element of the current general plan. Policy L19 says, discourage new projects in the downtown area which are entirely residential. So that says it all. We need commercial there.
But it's one parcel.
The project is an independent project.
It's independent from what is existing.
It's already there, yeah.
I see, okay.
See, what happens is when you have a fire and you have property rights, usually they're non-conforming. Uses have changed. What you did was legal when it was done. But with the fire, all bets are off. As soon as you reach your economic life by whatever method, you have to start from scratch and you have to meet the current requirements. And that's what we're looking at. And so I'll hear any other comments we have from folks.
Yes.
That's it?
No, I have another.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Kara Denny.
Hi, thank you. I'm
Would
actually
you
a shop,
state your name for the record into the machine?
Kara Denny, and I'm owner of Live in the Green Dream and Gateway Properties, which I'm going to show you where that's at. So this is my shop, Live in the Green Dream, which fronts Washington, and then this is Gateway Properties, which is it's a one big room but 2 doors. And I guess what I have a question about is because currently, oh, sorry, but currently there's a door here, and this is one unit. It's not separated off. So what I'm questioning is, he's saying that there's 2 units here. This is already existing. So is there going to be a set 2 units here, or is it only this one?
It's supposed to be 2.
Okay, so as a shop owner, and I also live here in town, I see a great need for affordable commercial space. One of the great benefits I've had in being in that building is that I do have that, and it is because I take a huge hit on my business because I'm off the beaten path, is what I call it. I would really support, and I also do real estate and property management. I know parking is a concern. It's a problem in most apartment complex areas. But what my experience is with the parking in that area is the only time I ever have a problem with parking is when we're having festivals. Usually I can find parking within my shop on that street, and my shop hours are between 11 and 12 and 4 o'clock. So I come in kind of at the prime time. So I think that really the parking isn't as much of an issue, just from my experience of being there for the last 5 years and being able to find spots. With the cyclone fence that was there, that was a little bit of an issue. But I would really like to see a mixed use for the benefit of the town in keeping rents lower for commercial units, as well as providing other area opportunities for business owners, because I found that we do have a high turnover, which I think that's a lack of people's business plans and having a 3 to 5 year plan. I've been there for 5 years. They think that they're going to come in and they're going to make money immediately, and they need to be educated, unfortunately, because that's not the way it goes in this town. So I definitely would support a mixed use, and I don't think parking is as much of an issue. Less residential, more commercial. But I also would like to see some improvements on the current building as well to blend nicely with the new plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
No, the speaker cards.
May I make a comment?
Yes, ma'am.
This is, I missed the last meeting, so I watched the June 10th meeting on the computer through streaming. And I have to say that unless people do come to the podium, it's really hard to hear. You're not aware of it while you're here, but when you're trying to watch it on TV or on the computer, it's really difficult. So thank you for coming to the podium and trying to speak into the mic when you can.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker.
I have another speaker card.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Mr. Kent, okay.
Like everybody else, I'm the owner of Great McCandless. I appreciate, the desire for mixed use, and it's a good planning tool in the right setting. I've owned property in the Plaza Mall for 15 years. I've seen a lot of hearts broken, people starting businesses, high hopes, the doors open on 2nd Street, nobody comes in. It's, and like Kara said, part of it depends on your business plan, but there's a lot of people in this town who are starting for the first time. These are not established businesses. And what I find, over the past 15 years, the economy has gone up and down. The rents are not much different than they were back when I bought my building. I invested here because I like the city. The building did make some economic sense, and I, wanted to hang on to it. And but I see situations where I have 2 prime spaces on 3rd Street that are not open 7 days a week because the midweek is slow. People inside the mall In general, it's been a high turnover. Kara's done quite well there where she is, but she has a little bit different type of operation. I'm very concerned that you don't see too much traffic down 2nd Street. People walk, they come down from the Mission, they walk down 3rd Street. And there's not much incentive to go down 2nd Street. And part of the problem, getting any density there, is Hardeen's is there, and they have a big backyard. It'll never be developed as commercial, so if there is commercial down there, it'll be tucked away. My little piece of land back there, which isn't that big. And I don't, unless people are walking up from 4th Street, park down there, I don't see where the traffic's going to go down there, and I'm really afraid that people are going to open shops down there, and they're going to open up, and they're going to not get any traffic during the week. Because this town, a beautiful town, it does get slow. And if I could get some anchor tenants down there, pre-lease it to some solid tenants, maybe destination tenants, a restaurant or cafe, something to bring people in, that'd be wonderful. And that's what, normally you try to do, but it's totally speculative. And what happens, to build and people don't come? You have people living in apartments, that's a pretty certain thing, but, what if people open businesses and they can't make it? They're trying to make it 3 days a week, and it doesn't do the town any good. And then what do? Then I live with a project that's pretty much, largely unsuccessful. And I just, there's a possibility it would work down there, but there's no precedent in San Juan for that type of development. And I don't see, the Orient Express restaurant, we're successful, but they need a signage on 3rd Street to get people down there. I allowed that, for them because they normally, anyway, it didn't help them that much for side traffic, for the street traffic. I'm willing to, work with the city on something that the city likes. I mean, I like mixed use, but, it's a big risk for me. I'm the one that, if it doesn't work, has to heat it basically, and there's not much I can do. And apartments bring life to the city, bring people in. The apartments in my Adobe are very successful in terms of, someone mentioned noise factor. Well, I have a tenant lives right next to Mom and Pop's, and it has motorcycle traffic and karaoke and what have you. And she's been there for 4 years, and she likes the environment downtown. So, it's people move to where they want to live. So, I'm open to suggestions, to have some kind of win-win situation. But what makes sense, I think, highest best use, and what makes sense for the town is to bring people into town, live in apartments, and be quiet. I don't think parking's going to be impacted, and people, can walk to 3rd Street, walk downtown, and it's, I think it's a better situation for the town. And it certainly works for me better economically, because it is a risky situation.
Do you own property in any other communities?
Yes, I do.
And do you have the same problems with occupancy and turnover? Or, I'm wondering, instead of commercial or retail, what if you had an office or?
That would be fine, except I've never seen much office demand in San Juan, and in the mall where the spaces go vacant. I have some office usages, but in general, you don't get that. There doesn't seem to be that demand. If there is, that's fine, that's great. But it still doesn't draw people in the way that retail potentially could. And you could put, I could put some, few units, small units there, but I don't know if that really is of any benefit. When you do a true mixed use, you're kind of doing a balanced usage situation, I think. Apartments on top, retail on the bottom. And I'm open to suggestions. I certainly want to build a nice complex there, but I think the apartment, the way it's designed would fit in very well with the Adobe, the house next door. And very non-obtrusive and certainly not a nuisance to anybody. And
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any other comments?
Looks like there's another comment.
Do you want to speak first?
I'd like to hear him first.
Oh, first, okay.
Maybe he's addressing what I'm
I was going to
thinking.
put you up.
Thank you, and I will.
My name is Michael McCandless. I'm the son of Greg. I have one extra comment to make regarding, we've heard about the parking, about the fact that it's not mixed, what you consider mixed use, and the fact that it's a simply residential development. I want to remind the council that the economic feasibility is one large aspect that goes into building a project like this. And we've heard comments about things like affordable rent. I agree, that's great. However, when you're starting a building from scratch, and you're starting a building that has to have every single code upgrade, everything that's required of today's city mandates, you have a feasibility issue. If you could subsidize, which is what I believe affordable housing used to be in the state of California, and subsidize things like building, then you have something that equals affordable, whatever you want to call it. If you want to call it affordable housing, affordable office, affordable retail. That doesn't exist right now, and there isn't any such subsidy. So that kind of really goes to speak for the feasibility and the economics of this building. Number two is the risk. One thing about putting through a mixed-use development is the fact that you will have retail shops on the bottom. This isn't a strip mall. This isn't a shopping center. It isn't a destination center. Therefore, you don't have anchor tenants. Therefore, you don't have pre-leasing. Therefore, you don't have financing. So I want to remind you that part of building a project like this is the fact that it has to be financeable. If you don't have financeability, you can't build it. And in this town, that's very important to have financing. Given the speculative nature of what office or what you would consider mixed use and retail on the bottom floor, that's a no-go. Secondly, with regard to financing, is you have to consider the interest rates, you have to consider your return on investment. Consider the building cost, and you consider the fact that an appropriate return on investor, given the risk of this town, this isn't Silicon Valley, this isn't Mountain View, where you have people just flocking to the space. This is a little bit different. So the risk here is a lot higher. And any smart investor is not going to go take huge risks with low return on their money. Lastly, I'd like to address the walkability issue. It is off the main, what we consider the main street, so that is part of the risk. But you also have across the street, you mentioned Hardeen's, and the walkability there and the attraction of people to walk down that side of the street. You don't have shops on your side of the street, so the walkability to bring people down that area is low. So just to wrap that up, I think one thing to remember here when you're asking for mixed use, when you're asking for commercial, when you're asking for retail on the ground floor, is you have to consider the type of rents you have to ask in order to make it work. And that's not affordable. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mariana.
This was only supposed to be informal review.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment here. Thank you for your attention. Mariana Thomas, I live on 45 Monterey Street. I wanted to say, I used to have an antique shop in Mr. McCandless and Mrs. McCandless' property, actually in the same shop where Kara Denny has her shop, and I was open every day, regularly, and I did well. And I also want to say that they were the best landlords I've had in San Juan, and I really appreciate them in the professional way and as people. I had to leave because I had a huge mortgage, and you know what happened in 2008 with mortgages, etc. But I had no problem with any of these things that have been mentioned this evening, walking, parking, etc. And as I say, I did the display window that Kara has painted us, and now I had it clear. I had a wonderful display there. People would come in all the time. Considering that the house at the end of the block at one time also had been a business, I think that whole block is really, could be a vital commercial block. And that was my experience, and I want to thank the McCandless for that experience because I did not want to leave. Just circumstances forced it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Reed.
There are a lot of pieces here that are floating that I'm trying to bring together in my mind. It seems that if the parcel is
is zoned mixed use, and the existing adobe and the area that was burned is all the same parcel, it would seem that if there's commercial space being added or being reinvigorated in the adobe and residential in the new structure, that would be appropriate. And there are plenty of parcels downtown that are zoned mixed use that only have commercial, I believe. Is that true? Like the building that has daisies or...
Bank. Former bank.
Yeah, yeah. So it would seem that there would be some flexibility here. I personally, I'm not sure that there is a good commercial location in San Juan at this time. I think everybody's struggling in some way. So I can empathize with Mr. McCandless' desire to have a feasible project, and that a commercial having commercial space that you have to rely on in that space is pretty iffy. I would be uncomfortable if I had to rely on putting businesses in that space to make the project fly. My experience of Mr. McCandless is he's the kind of owner that we want to have in San Juan. That he has been responsive. He is trying to reinvigorate that space. People have had good experiences with him in the town, and I would hate to have him not be able to participate because he can't find a way to make the project feasible.
Thank you. Any other comments that you have?
No.
Okay, Commissioner, you've been waiting to talk.
Yes, I've been waiting. Because this is an informal project review, we are just giving our opinions, not basing this on any decision making. Something about the parking. The parking during the day is not a problem in San Juan Bautista. It is at night when the tenants come home and need to park on the street, as well as all the people going to the restaurants. Anybody who comes to San Juan night and day will see the difference between night and day. It's a busy place at night. And when you're talking about the apartments down there's no problem parking during the day.
Yeah, they're there all the time.
And Sundays maybe.
No, even on Monday.
But, and then the other is that we certainly do need apartments in San Juan Bautista. People are always asking, and they're very difficult to
Just
find.
today, we had people asking. Yeah.
Yes, walking off the street asking. So while we were at the museum, actually there. Those are my two comments that you might use when you make final application, because tonight is just the talk issue, I believe.
Correct.
I'd like to say something. 30 years ago, I built Hawk Peak Plaza down here.
Oh, okay.
It's been rented the whole 30 years because I keep the rent low and we make sure they keep it clean and have nice shops in it. And we created that breezeway in there for the shops. You could use that. We just put a winery down the other hill on the back and sell wine there. And it's been rented for 30-some years straight. And it goes, once in a while we lose a tenant, but it's always full.
And how do you acquire good new tenants? Do you solicit them? Do
We
they
keep
just...
the rent where you can afford it. Most of the shops in San Juan, most of the people down this end don't open until after 1 o'clock. I see people walking in San Juan where shops are closed. We got Brass Lantern across the street. It's been empty for, what, 7 years now?
Cutting horse now.
So,
Well,
Mr. Medeiros?
Good evening, everybody. As far as I can recall, we've had 3 different presentations here. We had the original presentation, which was just the apartment building and parking lot and the restoring of the older building. And then we were exposed or presented with another, I believe, set of drawings which demonstrated commercial use on the bottom floor and the upper floor being residential. And that, I thought that's what we were going for here. So in my opinion, I would prefer to see that remain commercial and mixed use, being that that's what downtown is all about. It's been a successful, living here all these years in San Juan, that area of town has been successful, has had successful business. They've had a hardware store there and a feed store there for years. And it's just a matter of what you put in there. I understand the feasibilities, economic problems that we're having today, but they're huge problems, and we've got to resolve that. But I still feel we need to go with commercial use as far as the lower floors go and the upper floors become residential. And to keep in contiguous with downtown activity, buildings and architectural design and what have you, and the purpose of it. So that's where I'm coming from. And I know, let me talk about the parking. It seems like if it stays commercial, mixed use, I think you'll have a better use of parking and availability. If it becomes residential, I think you're going to have a serious problem down there with parking when it comes to commercial use as well, or mixed use. So that's where I'm coming from. Excuse me, my voice is leaving me.
Some water. Thank you for bringing up hardware store. Wouldn't it be great to have a hardware store downtown?
Maybe it would be a good idea if we could close that street off, put pavers and trees, and create an atmosphere where people will go down that street.
I thought we were going to do that to Franklin, but it didn't happen, did it?
I have another comment about parking. And this may be the time that we really need to do this. Mr. Pock has a huge parking lot that's unavailable. I don't know why or what the city can do about it or how it could be made available. And one of the landowners, Georgina Liu, has a lot of space behind her 3rd Street buildings that are not being used. We need to do something now. It's time.
And they're contiguous to Mr. McCandless's property. That one is.
So I think we need to explore that seriously. And I appreciate having Mr. McCandless in town too, because he recently renovated the Plaza Market, and in doing so, it looks as good. It's in better condition, and yet it looks old, if that sounds right.
Some of us do.
The tenants, it's very nice for the tenants, and I think that we appreciate that effort, and we appreciate having that kind of property owner.
Plus Pierce Lane.
And Pierce Lane too. That was a great renovation.
The cooperation that he's showing with the whole brewery project is commendable.
And we do need that.
Encouraging.
Okay, I see if we have a problem, I just hate to make the problem worse, because you can't set the future up for more problems. Parking I see as a major issue, and so does the Planning Commission. We sent a letter to the City Council telling them we had major problems out there, asking them to meet with the diocese, the school district, the parks people, and our city to work this thing out in a mutual fashion. There are empty lots out there. There may be other accommodations, but we're not going to get them if somebody talks to a friend or somebody talks to somebody who works there. So we've asked the council to say, hey, we're going to speak to other elected officials or appointed at the highest levels and not just kind of have a folksy thing. So the Planning Commission couldn't do anything about it. We're too low in the pecking order. We don't own the property, have no rights in the school district or the state property. But when they meet with the city council, the diocese, school district, etc., they have to face each other and maybe they can work something out. So the city recognizes a major parking issue. And on that basis, I would not want to support a project that was going to create more problems than to solve them. I know this is a hardship on the owners and developers. That is an issue that they have to deal with. We have to try and set up land use potential so that they can work within it. But they have to work within the ordinances that have been adopted by the city council. So, is there any other comments, commissioners? Okay, this was not a decision-making night. This was strictly to hear comments. I hope enough comments came from everybody, the public and the commission, to be able to help the folks in what they're going to do next. We can't mandate what they're going to do. We can only say we regulate land use through these ordinances. But variances are pieces of paper, a place to put a car as a potential customer or a resident. Okay, then...
I got one more question. I'd like to see them when they come back, that they have a full-size sketch of the heights of the buildings, basements. We don't want to run into the problem what we have across from the brewery where they put this big building up down there, and it's way too high. Georgiana will tell you it wasn't supposed to be that high.
But this is just the informal project
Right,
review.
but
And how many times do we have a limit as to how many? No. Okay.
But I like to see some measurements on it for heights and all that kind of stuff.
I didn't realize that we would review informal projects more than once. So I'm curious why we haven't set a limit. Because we've given information to the best of our ability, and we need to expect the next thing to be a real application or the next step, whatever we decide to take.
If we give enough information and it's interpreted differently, we're saving them an awful lot of time with their architects, engineers, and bringing it into the...
I see.
Time is money in this business. You're paying the banks for the money, and you're paying engineers. But I don't want to drag them on with public hearings that just get extended for the sake of extending them, or extended because we're not sure, or after a year saying we really didn't want you. If this is one way of providing enough information so when that application comes up, it moves, I'm willing to support it, the process. Okay, with no other comments then, I will go to the next item, and thank you folks and everybody who commented on this especially. Okay, we have a consent agenda. We have two items, the approving the affidavit of the posting agenda and approving the minutes of May 6th. That opens our regular meeting. I'll entertain a motion for
approving both items.
I have a comment before we approve. On page 2 of the May 6 minutes, under item C, we selected a color palette, but I'm pretty sure that the city manager said he'd get us a color palette sample on the back of the building so that we could review it before it's painted. Is that your recollection?
Yes, but we haven't gone that far into the...
But wouldn't we want to have that in the minutes?
I would think.
I think it should be in the minutes, yeah, and we intend to do that.
Okay.
When I've told them to hold off on doing any painting until after the grading's done, or there's a lot of dust
good,
around.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Take care of that. Okay, subject to minor corrections or additions.
Then I would like to move that we accept item A and B.
Okay, is that...
With the exception of the corrections
With the
to be
corrections,
included.
yeah.
Okay, is that your motion?
That's my second motion.
Okay. You second the second motion?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Guess we need a roll call vote on that by state law.
Commissioner Guerrero?
Aye.
Commissioner Galarte?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Medeiros?
Aye.
Commissioner Franco?
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, the next item, we have a continued public hearing. Consider amendments to Section 7, signs of the San Juan Bautista Design Guidelines. And the intent here is making the guidelines more user-friendly and also consistent with the new sign code that is being proposed for adoption. Staff.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the packet included the latest version of the guidelines. Once the packet had went out to you guys, we had heard from one of the commissioners that some of the changes that were talked about weren't reflected in that in that copy. With working with the student that was helping us out on this item, the edits were lost somewhere in between and weren't translated onto this copy. This last couple of days I've been going through that and making those necessary edits. One of the other things too, technology-wise, I've only had the PDF to work off of since the student had a lot of the original documents. So I emailed the student to get the original Word files, so it's a lot easier to work with.
Do you have PDF Writer?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. So I've been making the edits, but it's taking longer because it's a little bit more difficult to work with. But that I recommend that we bring it back for next month. I know it's not ideal, but we can send the copy out this upcoming month to make sure that we do get all those comments that were brought forward incorporated, and if anything else stands out, it would be good to catch and get it dialed in for next month.
Okay.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to continue the design guidelines to the August meeting, regular August meeting.
August 5th.
August 5th.
I'll make that motion to
Okay.
continue to the next meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I guess we need a roll call.
Yes, Commissioner Guerrero?
Aye.
Commissioner Gallardi?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Medeiros?
Aye.
Commissioner Franco?
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion was stated, as stated by the maker, passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item we have is the urban growth boundary. Consider an extension of the city's urban growth boundary to the Rancho Vista project, that's the Christopher Ranch, to show the city's ability to provide urban services together with a plan of service. This encompasses a 28-acre parcel north of the Creek Bridge subdivision and west of San Juan Highway, that's also First Street, and is within the corporate limits of the city. And this is a continued public hearing. I guess we'll start off with staff, then we'll go for public comments, and we'll go for commissioner comments.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, in the staff report, we kind of outlined the discussion from our last meeting and highlighted some of the general plan primary tools of guiding San Juan to future development through the year of 2035. We've expressed some policy consistencies throughout the staff report, and we'd like you to take a look at those. The action that we're recommending is to receive the staff report and receive input and testimony from the public and evaluate the policies of the 1998 general plan and consider adopting a resolution recommending to the City Council amending the urban growth boundaries.
Okay. Let's see, this item has been available. We have public comments.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Carl Baum?
Thank you, members of the Planning Commission.
Your clock's not up.
I'm not going to talk that long. I did address you last time, and I also submitted written comments, which I'd like to be made part of the public record and forwarded to the City Council when this goes forward. So I just want to provide you with a brief summary of my thoughts. The current general plan calls for San Juan Bautista to be a walkable city surrounded by open space and agriculture. This is why the Christopher Ranch, which is within city limits, is zoned agriculture. And Creek Bridge, which is within...
Can I interrupt you one moment?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to let the applicant speak first, even on my chart here. That might answer some of your questions, but we'll finish you or take you with new comments. But let's let the applicant speak first, and then we can have a bigger picture in case there's anything new that's come up.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Okay, can we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening, commissioners and staff. Bob Fulton with the Rancho Vista project. and I appreciate your time in hearing this again this evening. What we're asking for is an amendment to the urban growth boundary, and we did one last year that was for 38 acres that was outside the city limits over on the Mission Vineyard side. And so this is similar to what you had done last year. This property is owned by the Christopher family, and they've owned it for 25 years. You know them well as the Christopher Farms Group. And the 28 acres that we're talking about within the city limits has been used as range land. When they first bought the property, they told me that they tried to grow garlic and it just was not good. They found it not to be good agricultural land for it. They've kept it open and they've used it and had a hay crop on it each year. And their explanation to me was it was partly to keep the dust down and partly to feed some of their animals. So what we're looking is to have an urban growth services adjustment so that it services that portion of the 90-acre Christopher Ranch property. Matt, you've got a PowerPoint if you could. That would be great. I have a couple extra copies for those of you that might not be able to see on this side. It's a little challenging. As you know, I've sat in those seats for the last year or so listening to what's going on and trying to pay attention to what is important here within San Juan Bautista. And the subdivision that's next door, the Creek Bridge subdivision, I think was done very, very well through a collaboration between the Planning Commission and the developer. And it reflects a lot of what I see in San Juan Bautista. It's very unique. It's not a cookie cutter subdivision. There is nothing that is cookie cutter within San Juan Bautista. And it should, the belief is it should remain that way. As I said, the precedent on this was the 38 acres on Mission Vineyard. What we're proposing is consistent with the draft general plan that's in process now. Has been through numerous meetings. This is the first step toward creating Rancho Vista as a neighborhood. It's a great way for the Planning Commission and everyone to be able to design and create residential growth in the city. It is not a subdivision that will be popped up overnight. It's phased in over 6 phases on it and will take a period of time. The site is ideal for low-density residential. It's one of the reasons is at all the meetings I've been to, we've heard about the challenges of crossing Highway 156 at the Alameda. We talked about the Vinnie Martin Arco station, the drawback being that kids are going to want to go from one side of 156 to the other. And it seems that keeping the residential on this side of 156 would make sense. It's also away from the noise factor of the freeway that has come up at numerous meetings as in an ideal place to put housing. This site is also not within a flood zone. It is an ideal site to set up. It's not prone to landslides, and there are existing roads and utilities out to the site. This may be a little challenging to see, I apologize back there, but this is what we have proposed as the tentative map at this time. And if you'll look at it, the Creek Bridge subdivision adjacent to us now, everywhere that it backs up, we do have open space. This light green area is proposed as a detention pond, which can also, and I'll show you some pictures in a minute, there are other amenities that can go in there. It doesn't have to just be an open detention pond. It could be picnic tables, another things, as long as they're not going to float away once it's full of water. All along the creek, here and here, we've proposed an open space area. And we've also proposed, because we know that what we've talked about quite a bit is connectivity to the city. You want walking trails and bike trails and be able to get around the town. Little hard to see on this, and when I come back with a bigger map, it might be a little more, I'll get some bigger pictures for you to see, but everywhere along here, all the brown on this side is proposed as a walking trail. And actually, since this map and discussion, we've considered also bringing it up and around on 3rd Street toward the town. The red that you see, these are 5-foot wide bike paths leading from the 3rd Street area over to the San Juan Highway. We have connectivity with a new bridge that will span the creek and let traffic flow over toward the downtown area. And one of the other things that had come up is that there's always an issue of speed of traffic. And the concept is to put a roundabout that slows down traffic as it's coming into town. This area right here, we don't have it on this map, but the concept and the idea is that the city needs some entrance signage. And that would be an ideal place to do it. So you have an entrance sign as you're coming down 156 here, prior to the roundabout, which should slow people coming into the neighborhood. Some of the features on here, as I've mentioned, Creek Bridge, I think, was a very, very well done neighborhood. The collaboration that was done, the housing styles are fairly unique within it, and it was done very well. And that is what we're proposing, is to do a development that is conceived together with the Planning Commission and members of the town. You'd have energy efficient homes compared to what was done before. If you take a home that was built in 1995 versus a home that is built today, today's home will use at least 40% less water just because of energy efficient devices that are within homes. And we also tend to do more water conserving landscape these days. But these are criteria that Design Review is going to be able to do on these houses, as you did in Creek Bridge. We have open space. Excuse me. We have open space backing up to the existing homes, so none of the houses that are right there in Creek Bridge will be impacted. The street connectivity with the traffic calming device. We have the bicycle paths, walking trail. I'm going to go back to the map because I forgot to point out that this area up by 3rd Street, both sides of the road here, is proposed as a park area to be dedicated to the city. So, as I mentioned, the detention basin, you could put the park course, which is an exercise course, usually with fixed stations that people could go within. But again, it works well within a detention type basin, as do fixed picnic tables. We are also going to make the financial contribution. I know when I first mentioned this project, one of the members of town asked, hey, would you be willing to help towards signage to the city? And I know that you have an ongoing signage problem, or not problem, but a challenge to sort out what you're going to use and how you're going to do it. And we propose to help make that easier for the city to do. And then finally, on this, you've talked about relocating the wastewater treatment plant further down San Juan Highway, and also a potential future well to solve the issue, one of the issues, the major issue here within town. Both of those being on that end of town. This allows connectivity for main lines to go from the San Juan Highway over to where the existing treatment plant is and the rest of the town. This is just a conceptual of, hey, what could you do with the park at the 3rd Street Bridge area? That is something that will have to be conceived between us and Design Review as we go through it. But there are a lot of potentials that could happen. Again, this is an example of picnic tables within a small detention area. They're fixed, they don't get affected when you get a little bit of water in it, but when there's no water, they're good amenity.
Is that the area between the back of the Creek Bridge homes and the driveway?
Yes, the existing driveway that goes up to the house.
Okay.
That is this whole area here. The Creek Bridge detention pond is right there.
Okay.
So all of the area that you see up toward that and from the existing street would be proposed as detention basin to help, because there is an issue there each year in drainage, and this will help. Our challenge is to help resolve those issues.
Can you point out where the home is now, and that might help
Oh, the Christopher Ranch.
the audience understand
Sure.
where the house is?
Right here is the ranch house, the Christopher Ranch House. This is the existing street that you see going up there right now. Currently, it goes straight. We're going to curve it over and give them access over to the side and then access over to the barn area also here. This is what you see of the existing drainage channel right now. It's still there. That does not change. So really nothing much changes to the drainage channel over here, and then along the creek area here. So you'll have open space and then also a street before you'd even get near a house, which are also going to have a setback. And, it should be, we're trying to make it as, I don't know if it's the right word, unimpactful as possible. Make it a good neighbor. Again, park, detention type area. This is a walking trail up in the area where I live, and it's wonderful. We get a lot of use out of it. You can see bicycles, people walking. This is like an area, and it's 10 feet wide. It gives you plenty of use for a combined use, even though there will be dedicated bicycle lanes on the street. How does this impact San Juan Bautista? Well, one of the big things that it does initially is it brings in a lot of revenue to the city. There are challenges. We know we can't do anything until the water issue is resolved. There's nothing that could go forward. One of the things this project on its own does, just in water impact fees, is over $700,000. And then you'll see sewer connection, the traffic impact, public safety, park development, storm drain impact, library development fee. It's $187,000 into the library development fund. So there's over $2 million just directly in impact fees from this project.
And how are they paid, at the front end or?
The impact fees are paid usually at recording in the final map.
Yeah.
So it's a long process. That map's not going to be recorded in the next 3, 4, 5 months. This is going to take quite a period of time. We also have to go through Department of Fish and Game, regional water quality. There are a lot of steps in this process, and this is just the initial one. One of the other things that we've done since the water issue really has come to head in the last year here while I've been paying attention to what's going on. And there is a major problem. It's got to get corrected. And we're going to make an additional contribution on top of what you have as the impact fee. We're proposing that we would offer another $4,000 a unit, which is almost another $400,000. So with our project alone, just on the water issue, you're over $1 million toward the new well or whatever the resolution is going to be that you guys come up with for water. But it does need to get addressed. The other thing that I need to point out is that this contribution helps all of the residents in that if you're going to have an assessment or anything for each water user within the district, this will go toward keeping that down or eliminate it. I don't know, I can't answer what the cost of your solution will be, but I know this is a major contribution toward it. The other thing that you get is the residents that are going to come into town. I've heard tonight, and not just tonight, but constantly, the lack of, one of the challenges for the businesses downtown is the lack of people to spend money there. And local residents support local businesses. You need to have people to be able to support these. And if you were to look at what supports your businesses, it's going to be local residents. The other thing that happens is the annual income here to San Juan Bautista. These are your monthly water and sewer fees. There's another $170,000 a year that would come in on water and sewer fees, which obviously helps everyone else because the fixed costs to supply that system, because of new residents, don't go up as much as their contribution toward those fees. So it will help keep your rates down. Property taxes. Most people will come in and tell you, hey, our new development's going to bring in money on property taxes. But the reality is that the property taxes that go in, I think it's less than it's about 0.5% of that actually gets funneled down to the city. So that's, I mean, there's $39,000 put into here, but that's not much compared to the property taxes. So, but it is income that will come in on an annual basis. Your new residents, if you look at what it will qualify for a mortgage on about a $650,000 house, those people, the amount of discretionary income that a mortgage underwriter would tell you that they have to spend for those houses adds up to over $4 million a year. And that's a lot of income to be spent on miscellaneous items and throughout the town. Not only on top of that, you've got the friends, the relatives, the visitors that are going to come see new residents and our new people to San Juan Bautista. So With that, we ask for you to consider the urban growth boundary adjustment. It has some incredible benefits to the city. It is an ideal site for it, and it will produce a lot of needed revenue for the town. It's in a great location. 16 years ago, when the 1998 general plan was done, there probably wasn't nearly the traffic there is now trying to cross at the Alameda. And putting more residential out on the south end of town might have made a lot of sense. Things change. Traffic patterns change. The 98 general plan also suspected that by now you'd have 3,000 residents in town. And nowhere near that at the moment. But it seems to make a lot of sense. You are changing the general plan. There's been a lot of support for it, and our belief is this is where new residential, low-density residential should go. So thank you for your time, and appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you.
Okay, now is with the developer's presentation, if anybody else would like to sign up to speak, now would be the time to present your card to the secretary. Okay, we'll take whatever you have.
Can I reboot my card?
Reuse, recycle, renew.
I'd just like to,
just give them a second punch on the card.
I'd just like to, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, add one thing that Bob forgot is that there's always been a problem of the 3rd Street terminating right there at the sewer treatment plant, and everybody cutting through on Donner and everything. And by this project here, it will really increase the circulation by extending 3rd Street, and it'll loop around down to 1st Street, and it'll give another avenue where those people coming down 3rd Street, you know, you have the D'Ambrosio subdivision that will be 27 lots also there, and it'll give better access to that area.
Can I ask Roger a question? Are we going to enlarge that 3rd Street that's narrow?
Oh, yes.
For this project and other project?
The D'Ambrosio is conditioned for widening 3rd Street from North Street to the subdivision boundary.
To Donner.
Yeah, to Donner, yeah.
Really?
And you'll see that it was supposed to be on the agenda tonight, but we got fouled up with our notification, and it'll be at the August 5th meeting.
That's good news.
Okay, let's hear from the public before the commissioners get in here.
Car back up.
Come on down.
Carabonk, 609 3rd
Sector.
Street. I'll start my little speech over. Okay, the current general plan calls for San Juan Bautista to be a walkable city, surrounded by open space and agriculture. This is why the Christopher Ranch, which is within city limits, is zoned agricultural. And Creek Bridge, which is within the urban growth boundary, was an infill project. The current general plan calls for development to be south of Highway 156. And that's the area that was designated for development. We already have some residences there. We already have commercial. The general plan called for a specific plan to be developed for that area, which was started by a former city manager. We got into that project, and I have materials from that project if anybody wants to look at that. But it was abandoned, I think, due to lack of funding. Mr. Fulton has given you a very nice presentation here. First of all, I noticed the number of cul-de-sacs, which also does not follow what our general plan calls for. It calls for any new developments to follow our historical street structure, which is the grid pattern, not cul-de-sacs, which, in my view, is another prime example of suburban sprawl. If the city goes for this, I think you'll be selling out just to fix some of our water problems and some of our other problems that we have. And please note how many times Mr. Fulton used the word connectivity. Connectivity, that is the latest planning buzzword. You'll hear it, and you heard it when the students were presenting the general plan. Anyway, Bottom line is, I think this is misguided. It doesn't follow our general plan, and we're in the update process now. Why is this being brought to us now? You know, we have more time to have a thorough discussion on where development should be occurring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan DeVries?
Hello, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I have a handout for you. I'm sure she has a copy for the city file. And a part of the record. Well, that's going around before we, and Mr. Chair, I'd ask in advance for maybe a couple more minutes. I don't intend to go on and on, but in case I run out of time, I did want to talk
If there's
about
new information, we'll consider it.
Okay, thank you. Before we talk about some general plan information that's critical to you, I did want to first establish why are we here tonight. We're here to consider whether the urban growth boundary should be moved, amended, done away with in a certain area. We're not here tonight to approve a subdivision. And the slides, although informative, and the money, and this is what this could bring and so forth to San Juan Bautista is the equivalent of waving car keys to a 2-year-old. And I hope that you cannot be distracted by that and focus on the issue, which is, should you do away with the general plan's urban growth boundary in this area? What is the urban growth boundary? What it is a planning tool. It has nothing to do with sphere of influence, or LAFCO, or annexation, or providing services, or anything of the kind. On the agenda it says to show the city's ability to provide urban services together with a plan of service. The urban growth boundary doesn't do any of that. It doesn't, and didn't attempt to decide or try to predict in advance where would we be able to put sewer, where would we be able to provide water. The urban growth boundary in the 1998 general plan was simply an answer to this question. Should a line be drawn around the city of San Juan Bautista beyond which thou shalt not build? We call it the anti-sprawl line. It was literally a line in the dirt. We don't want to sprawl past this line. And then we had reasons for that at the time, whether it was prime ag or whether it was rangeland or ranch land. We had very, very good reasons for establishing a line beyond which thou shalt not grow, thou shalt not sprawl, which is a good segue into the 1998 general plan. That is the legal document controlling this city and its actions until a new one is put in place. A draft or a hypothetical future general plan may say lots of things, but right now, tonight, you are bound by the 1998 general plan, in which the urban growth boundary that you're being asked to do away with in this area to accommodate one developer is located. That's the 1998 general plan. That 1998 general plan does accommodate for 3,000 to 3,200 residents, and we're only at 1,900 right now. I'm just going along some of my notes here that I wrote down from you all and they have page references too if you want to go home and read these right in the plan. This isn't me, this is your document. First, conservation of agricultural land and hillsides around San Juan Bautista must be a priority. It's acknowledged that the city cannot sustain significant growth until infrastructure problems, particularly sewer and water and drainage problems, are resolved. Shouldn't grow with 90 lots. I counted quickly as the proposed map was going around. It's 90 lots, 90 homes. That's a huge housing development by anyone's standards, and certainly by the San Juan Bautista standards. Page 2-7 says you shouldn't do that until the issue of water is resolved. Beyond the boundaries of the urban growth boundary, the issue of agricultural preservation cannot be emphasized enough. Loss of the San Juan Valley to suburban sprawl would not only diminish the county's agricultural income, it would change the character of San Juan Bautista forever. Big housing developments are inconsistent with the town's character. New development should be small, incremental, and designed to blend with the community. And that's what we tried to do with Creek Bridge. That's why it gets the high praise that it does. It was small, it was incremental, it did add on to the city. Here's another excerpt. The plan establishes an urban growth boundary, or UGB, on the perimeter of San Juan Bautista. The UGB is a parcel-specific boundary that marks the limit of where urban development may occur during the life of the general plan. Its intent is to reduce urban sprawl. That's its intent, that's its purpose, prevent urban sprawl. The key aspect of the vision for San Juan's future are retention of agriculture and open spaces around the perimeter of the city. When you look at the goals of the current general plan, policy L1, maintain an urban growth boundary that delineates the ultimate limits of urban development around San Juan Bautista from 1998 through 2015. The city should not extend water and sewer lines beyond this boundary. Urban development in the planning area will only be allowed if it falls within the UGB.
30 seconds, Mr. Tamel.
Filling in the gaps in the existing city is a more efficient way to grow and will help avoid urban sprawl. Allowing expansion of the urban growth boundary only, this is policy L5, allow expansion, which you're being asked to do tonight, of the urban growth boundary only when the amount of developable land within the city boundary is not sufficient. Lastly, just a quick second on the fact that this is on the California state map of farmlands of prime importance as prime farmland. And this is prime agriculture. The fact that Don Christopher hasn't farmed it is because Don Christopher is a millionaire and doesn't need to farm it. But if you ask Dale Koch or Earthbound Farm or the Church Brothers or David Gill or any of those guys whether they could plant and would plant lettuce or other crops there, the answer would be resoundingly yes, because they're doing so on the other side of the street.
Thank you. Other speakers?
Mariana Kamal?
Thank you. Board members, staff. I wanted to just briefly say that at the last city council meeting, I was taken aback by comments of Councilman Moore when discussion was being done about water prop issues. Perhaps he was tired, but the reason I'm speaking tonight, and I want to bring this up, he said, well, you know, we've got a couple of developers interested here, I think we ought to just invite them in. I felt very disappointed in his lack of wisdom and concern for the community in those
I think
comments.
that his personal attack is not.
It's not a personal attack, sir. It is. I am asking you to have the wisdom and the bigness of the responsibility of your duty in making this decision, because it's a very important one. And I agree with Kara Wonk, and I'm learning a lot about the community, so I cannot speak in detail, but I have spoken to many people who feel that the extension of the boundary and the project would just be a very wrong thing for the community. So that is all I wanted to say, and I want to appeal to your professionalism in making this decision and your seriousness.
Thank you. Larry Gerbrand?
Yes, my name is Larry Gerbrand, and I'm a resident at 29 North Street. So this development affects me a lot more than most people on this end of town. I can imagine that when the development, we live in a new development in town, when that was proposed, there was probably similar resistance to what I'm sure would have been considered urban sprawl. It's a development. I'm not quite sure what sprawl is. I think every new development increases the size, so I think we're beginning to get into words that carry a lot of weight behind them that may not necessarily be applicable. So personally, I welcome having additional neighbors in town. And from what I heard, it can't go forward until the water problem is solved to allow it. So I also believe that San Juan Bautista does need greater scale to support. If we had more people in town, it could very well be that a restaurant on Monterey Street would be viable, something to replace the Chinese restaurant. So I know I'm commingling a couple things there, but the idea of a larger community in a controlled fashion, I think is a positive one. Having said that, being that I'm right at the gateway of where this is going to happen, I wanted to hear a little more detail on exactly how we're going to solve the problem of 3rd Street. I guess that would be west of North Street, that would connect 3rd Street essentially, or widen it so that it would connect to this new development. I'm not quite sure I understand what's being proposed there, and it directly affects our end of town. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it.
Carol will speak.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob Reed.
Bob Reed.
John Freeman. No, John Freeman first, I'm sorry.
Bob, if you want to talk.
No. I'm sorry.
That actually was a question. I was hoping to get an answer to.
We'll work with it.
I also live on North Street, so I'll be affected by this too.
Would you state your name for the
John,
record?
John Freeman.
It's okay.
And I basically want to support Dan's prior comments. I used to live in a large city in the Central Valley, and I do know what urban sprawl is like, because when they eliminated the growth line, it just went, every couple of years. And it's not pretty. So, Dan has the more background and better legal reasons, but just support what he said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Reed. Maybe for clarification, is this an attempt to remove the urban growth boundary or to relocate the urban growth boundary?
I think relocated would be.
Right. So it's not a matter of erasing the line so that sprawl can just happen. It's a matter of changing that location. And Mr. DeRees spoke about how that urban growth boundary delineated where growth could happen during the life of the 1998 general plan, which is up next year. In all of the meetings about the new general plan, I did not hear concerns about all the growth happening on the other side of 156. The relocation of the sewage plant and the possibility of growing to the north was a part of that new general plan in different ways. But this would seem to be consistent with what was expressed during those meetings, to me. The idea that San Juan would no longer be surrounded by agricultural land and open space, I think, is not true. That even if you developed the Christopher Ranch, San Juan would still be surrounded on that side by agricultural land and open space. It would just be a different line.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other cards?
Yes, the solid speaker cards I have for this item.
Okay, commissioners, it's your turn.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask,
staff?
just kind of clarify what Mr. Gerbrandt had asked us. The 3rd Street is going to be widened by 2 developments if they occur, and that would be the D'Ambrosio as well as the Christopher in the section between the sewer treatment plant and east of Donner, approximately 200 feet. Also, the D'Ambrosio is conditioned with the 40-lot subdivision, which has been revised down to 27 lots, that they are responsible to widen 3rd Street from the east boundary of the subdivision to North Street. And that'll have 2 moving lanes as well as parking. And that will increase the traffic flow in that section. It's very narrow.
So all those front yards are going to go on the far side of 3rd?
No, it will occur is that there is a parkway between the sidewalk and the curb. The parkway will be eliminated and the curb and gutter and sidewalk will be monolithically poured, and the widening will occur in that direction.
On the west side?
On
or
the south side.
The south side.
Yes.
And that'll be no impact to the original owners?
That is correct. No impact to the owners. That will create a 33-foot face of curb to face of curb that will handle 2 lanes of traffic, 24, and then a parking on the south side. Parking will continue to be a no parking zone on the north side.
And that also include putting the power lines underground?
Yes.
Commissioner did something right there. Okay. Let's face it, the city does not own businesses, does not start businesses, does not develop. We regulate. This is government. So when projects come up, either the developer accounts for all the impacts or the taxpayer does. And since that isn't considered fair in our society, the developer figures what it costs, and that becomes the cost of doing business and is picked up in the cost of the units as they're sold. Commissioners, who wants to start?
I will.
Okay.
Since I missed the last meeting, I did watch the meeting, 223 minutes of it on CMAP. And I have a lot of, I don't know where to begin because so many different issues are tied together. The general plan, the urban growth boundary amendment, and what was the other thing? One more thing. Maybe I'll just start with this. I was looking at, I wanted to clarify, because I went to the general plan meeting on June 16th, that it seemed to me that some members of the audience weren't clear on the fact that the general plan, the newly proposed general plan that will take effect next year, has been a product of the community. We did not participate as a board. We went individually, participated as individual members of the community. So I don't want anyone to think that the general plan or this urban growth plan, anything is our doing. If I just show you or tell you, the acknowledgements page on the 1998 general plan lists the city council, the city planning, and then it lists general plan citizens advisory committee. There were 13 members. The new general plan draft lists the city council, planning commission, doesn't go by name, general plan advisory committee. I don't know who all those members are. I don't know if there is a finite group, if it was just people who showed up on that night. But those are the people who made recommendations, and a lot of things are different from 1998. At that time, the plan, the wish was for development to occur south of 156. At the present time, the people who spoke want it away from the freeway. They want it north of town. What I've learned in the last month, I guess, is that the area that's south of town, it's not all annexed, it's not all contiguous, it's not going to be part of the city anytime soon, based on my understanding. The Ottoboni property seems like the stumbling block, and it's going to remain agricultural for a while. It won't be annexed, is it, or?
No, it's non-contiguous, the 3 parcels, and it is currently agricultural row crop, and that is prime ag land more than the Christophers.
And the other properties that they have the potential for infill development are not exactly feasible. They've got hillside issues, they've got, I forget what the other issue is. I can also say that I'm from Southern California, so I know all about urban sprawl. I commuted from Pasadena to the west part of town, for 2 years, so I know traffic. I am here because of that. I love San Juan. I love it for the same reasons that so many people have expressed that they love it, the small town. I'm president of the Historical Society. I appreciate the past. I got to know the Lavanino family because they used to own the Christopher Ranch, and I have seen photos that I don't think they farmed it either. I think they might have grown alfalfa and they had horses. So I don't know that we'd be really losing prime farmland there. I live in Creekbridge, so it's my backyard. At one time, where I live was in somebody's backyard, and somebody thankfully, no thanks to you, I heard you say, not everybody embraced the idea of Creekbridge, but I think it's turned out to be not so bad. And though this is very difficult, this is not an easy decision. Coming in tonight, I still wasn't sure how I was going to vote. But I think I know how I'm leaning. You probably can tell now. Another thing that concerns me is the fact that we have a $10 million water debt that with the variable interest rate that we have will be about $26 million to pay off. If we can spread that to new development, then I think that would be better. I don't think anybody here really wants to have their own water rates raised, which is what would happen. The Creekbridge development, I think, was very, very well done. And I have the feeling, based on everything I've seen, that the Christopher Ranch people appreciate the Creekbridge property and would want to model that. I think 90 homes is too many. And I think Georgiana feels the same way. I would like to see some kind of senior housing included in it. But I think I've covered everything I wanted to say.
You sure?
So, well, I'm not sure, but go ahead.
Well, if you get something else, just give a signal. Georgiana?
Just because I want senior housing?
Well, somebody's got to stick up for the folks.
Oh, my goodness. I, too, have been struggling and doing my homework, talking to individuals in the community, long friendship and with them and us. I don't really know where to start, except to go back to some of the thoughts I had at the last meeting at the community hall, which was impossible to hear. When I said that the best way to look at the future is to look at the past, go back to looking at our general plan here, and this is the part of it that we're looking forward to next year. I also dug out this, and you may have found it back there with the agenda, and I put it all around here. It considers historical growth of San Juan Bautista, excerpts from San Juan Bautista housing element, referring to the 1965 one, I think. Anyway, the bottom line, the sentence is, San Juan Bautista now finds itself in a dilemma. That is, how to protect the existing level of amenities and strong community identity while responding to the need for housing and jobs. This is the brochure that went with Mission Vista on First Street when Joe Columber, Subordin Bastiano, and so forth, and Wyrick's, I believe, developed those condos there. The dilemma is the same. I dug out another general plan. I showed it to Todd DeFries this evening, Mr. Fulton. This one. This was the 1965 general plan. This is it. Compared to first map suggests expanding 3rd Street out to the old highway through that property. It says proposed major street. Don't know exactly what that means or where we've left it since 1965. Not getting it done. I took a serious look at the specific plan that the city, I don't know how we got lost and didn't finish that plan. I thought it was a $300,000 deal and maybe we couldn't pay our way. or I don't know exactly how Mr. Davidson, who owns the cement plant property out there, pitched in for some of that, or Dr. Stevenson, those words, that was before I was too involved in the city. Taking a look at that side of San Juan and where it's supposed to go, it is really where we came from. It's on the way to Fremont Peak and the astronomy, which is gaining more viewers. Last Friday night was a perfect example. The old Stage Road, the old El Camino Real, and the San Juan Grade, Salinas Road, whatever you call it, at the end of the Alameda, that's a historic road. If you don't believe it, take it and see the concrete that's still on our side, not repaired. We have, at the county level, some kind of a proposition to get out of the Williamson Act by the Yoga Institute, which would develop a lot of that area. It is a cultural institution. We have St. Francis Retreat, which is a cultural institution. They're going to host the Vaquero Days next month. We have, I understood, some other proposals. The theater has used that as settings for plays. They have, the Teatro Campesino has property on that side of the hill. When we look at what we call the Ottoboni piece, it is prime agriculture. Perhaps someday it could be bought, if they don't want to continue to leave it that way, by an agricultural preserve, a found trust, such as they do in the Salinas Valley, and save that. The city has 2 sites out there, one for its well and one for its potential plant, still in the county. Speaking of water, they still own 1/3 of an acre up in Mr. Bain's place in San Juan Canyon, where everybody can drink the water. So we need to think very carefully about that area and make that I think, our preserve. There are some housing being talked about out there. It's still in the county. Don't know what there goes. And then I took a serious look in the last few days at what's happening north of town. North of town isn't really at this time our gateway. It has become an agricultural industrial heavy trucks area. The kind of ag that's out there today is nothing that we would have envisioned in 1998, 1977. We're working on this. I don't think, Dan, I don't think we envisioned tents to grow products under, night and day lighting out there. Huge expansion that brings hundreds of huge trucks to large industries that we're not guaranteed that they won't expand, and possibly they are thinking of expanding. And then as we come closer to town, we get to our city limits. And why our urban growth boundary wasn't put at the edge of our city limits back in 97, 98, I can't quite figure that one out. So I am in a real dilemma about what to do. I know that we are facing a new general plan. It will be different. We will be going over it for the next year or so. And possibly the urban growth boundary will be extended at least to the edge of the city. And in that case, this dilemma that we're having tonight would not even be facing us. So how do we weigh the remarks of the people we've heard tonight who are saying the general plan must stand? I guess how we weigh it is to look at the general plan and try to figure out what the words exactly mean. The words I heard Dan talk about in policy L5, it says, allow expansion of the urban growth boundary only when the amount of developable land within its boundary is not sufficient to achieve the goals of the general plan. Does the phrase within its boundary mean general growth boundary, or does it mean city limit? City limits. And I think there are other places, perhaps I marked in my other book, that I thought it referred to city limits. So here I am, taking up all of this time, taking a look at where do we go from here? How do we talk with an applicant who makes offers to become our business partner, and yet we have the constraints of the legal situation? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I think that project would be a good project for San Juan Bautista, because San Juan needs revenue to keep operating. Without this revenue, San Juan's going to end up dying. And they're going to put a lot of money out, and it's going to help bring us new water, fix our sewer plants over the period of years. Right now, we have a debt of $11 million for a water project that was never finished, that went down San Juan 4th Street all the way up to Mission Vineyard. $11 million note that in 35 years is going to be a $35 million payoff in interest. So that's why we need to develop some in San Juan and get some going, for we have revenue to pay for all this debt. Else we're not going to be in this town. It's going to go back to the county. And that's all I can say.
Mr. Medeiros?
Yeah, I think everybody knows how I feel about this project or this development that's going on. I've worked on the strategic plan, I've worked on the general plans, what have you, and I don't see anywhere in there where this project does not fit in, or this development does not fit in. I see that the new general plan is piggybacking the old general plan, and it's not that far removed. And that being said, on my part, I can see that from what I hear from our commissioners, I agree with a lot what they say. I understand with a lot what they say. I also agree with a lot of people in the audience or in the community public. I also agree with them, and I understand where they're coming from. But yet, in my heart, I know, I've seen it. I've been against some of these projects. But I know this is right for San Juan Bautista. This is a development that's going to work for us. It's going to help the community. It's going to bring people in here. It's going to stimulate the economy. We need to step forward as a community and show the rest of the world around here that we can continue to grow and progress as a community and continue to serve our charter, our general plan, in such a way that we show other communities how to do it right and get it done and move our San Juan Bautista forward in the right direction. I believe this development will help us do that. They are willing to work with us. Let's listen to them. Let's work with them. I am also going to listen to them and listen to you as we go on. And hopefully we will find some more solutions in how we can perfect this development. We are a long ways off from getting the first nail put on, the first board to put on the first roof or frames, whatever you want to do for houses. So there's a lot to be worked out here, and I think in that process, from what I understand, we'll get it done right. And my interpretation right now is, when do we get things started? That's where I'm coming from. The other thing that I keep hearing is this urban sprawl situation that keeps coming up. I don't think you've got the words or understand what that means. From what I understand, urban sprawl is when you go into an area, a rural area, an area that's not part of your community. There's another word beside rural I'm looking for here. I can't think of it right now. It's separate from everything that we're doing. To me, that's urban sprawl. That's the definition of, if you look for it. We're not doing that here. This is contiguous to what we've got going now. And our general plan and our policies help to serve that in the right direction, and that's where why we're doing what we're doing. And bottom line is, I thank you for all your input and what have you, and I share in all of your all your concerns and opinions. But again, and I still favor this development. We got to get things going here in San Juan to bring in and stimulate the economy, employment, you name it. This is what this is going to do for us. And we've got to show other developers where we stand as a community, that we want to build our community, the San Juan Bautista that we already know, to the point where we can grow with other communities. And, you know, I don't want to be Gilroy, I don't want to be Hollister, I don't want to be San Jose, I don't want to be LA. I want to be San Juan Bautista. What is it? I think the Creek Bridge projects and similar projects to the, the Rancho Vista project can help us achieve those goals.
I guess it's my turn. We're talking about the city and keeping it small and local. At one time, San Juan Bautista was the largest city on the east side of the Gavilan Mountains between San Francisco and Los Angeles. So we're big. This is like in Salinas. They gave Southern Pacific land, Santa Rita Rancho didn't, and Salinas City grew, Santa Rita didn't. Railroad and everybody went to Hollister, and San Juan Bautista started to die on the vine. I understand the cement plant kept it going, and that was a plus. The cement plant is gone. So, first to say that we have a small city, we didn't always have one. To say that we want to get back to where we were, I don't know if we ever can do that. I do know, though, that growth and change kind of go hand in hand. Commissioner Georgiana said that it gave you the history, a lot of the history here. Sure, the ideas come up, and as conditions and economic conditions, political conditions, the war, you name it, all these things have an effect on what people are going to do with their property next. And we've had many changes, and from '98 to now, there has been a strong feeling about not letting a bunch of kids cross 156 to go buy some ice cream, to start doing some development on the north end. Okay, we were talking about sprawl. San Jose defined sprawl for us, when they would do a couple of miles of pipe to go to a ranch and condemn everything in between it. Okay, we're not doing that. You have a major project, and when we say major, where I used to work, projects were big, size of mountains and whatnot. Creekside was a large project for San Juan Bautista, and you have the testimony and your own vision. It was done well. Now, we have a piece of land that's contiguous to a project we all like. And we're not going to go and annex it to the city. It's in the city. A small piece of this property, the Christopher Ranch, just happens to be outside the city limits, and that can be handled and is being handled by staff with the county for an annexation. LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Commission, handles that, but the bottom line is that small piece of land within the, just outside the city limits, but part of a bigger piece, would make sense to be kept as a single unit. Okay, we're not talking tonight about the project, because there is no project. There is no application in front of the commission for a subdivision up there. But a lot of discussion. We're talking about moving an urban growth line to pick up the entire city, because that piece of land is in the city and should be a continuous development of the city limits. When we get there, if you ever want to move the city limits, that's a whole different ballgame. But we're not talking about the project. It came up in the reason of why we would be doing this. Is moving the line good? What could be done? I mean, another developer could come up with a second proposal. This proposal, Mr. Fulton can come up with a different proposal with a different name. It's immaterial. Bottom line is, do we want to develop to the city limit line? And I think that's what's really before us. So, it's contiguous, so we're not talking about sprawl. There was a lot of comments at the joint meeting about noise, and one way to get rid of noise is to move forward. I live in an airport zone, and airport zones are messy. All they do is they buy you out. They say, okay, we're going to seal your windows. We're going to put soundproofing in the walls. But what have you got? This is not what you came to California. You came here for barbecues in the sunshine and open air. You know, not like somebody told me, you know, how many winters in Massachusetts can you live through? Okay, so we're going to have a development away from the noise, again, with restrictions that are tight. And even if it isn't Mr. Fulton and his company, the commission has already worked on conditions of other projects that look good to us. We improved over projects before we got seated as commissioners and filled in some details that were not considered by former commissions. So we're not talking something that isn't going to happen. San Juan Bautista is going to grow. All the economic uses, comments that were made by Mr. McCandless and his group, our businesses need people to come downtown. It's frustrating to go downtown to buy something and the store's closed. And they don't open until weekends, maybe. Okay, I would like to see a more constant supply of people coming in there, not just visitors, but everybody, local people supporting local businesses. We've made changes to ordinances. We've got a sign ordinance coming up. These folks on the side streets, fine. We got to help them be seen. The north end, we want people to know when you have reached San Juan Bautista. When you pass the flat land with all the goodies growing on it, you see quality development on both sides of the street, that's San Juan Bautista. And that's what we want to do. So, the city limit line, the urban growth boundary, and the project that we talked about was in support of why it should be moved. It is not in support of the project. We're talking about moving a line. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Give you a background, show you some of the facts that we're going to be using in the discussion, deliberation of this and the other projects that related to it. Commissioners, any comments on my comments?
Very good.
Yes, I needed to hear some of those thoughts in order to help mine.
Well, your support.
Thank you, and thank you for your thoughts too.
I worked off of some of your comments.
I did find, wish Mr. DeFries was still here, that policy LL, which is land use 3, encourage the development of vacant lots and underutilized property within the city of San Juan Bautista before approving urban development outside the existing city boundaries. And the housing element, encourage housing development on vacant infill sites within the city limits. So those are some of the things that we are concerned with here tonight. Thank you.
Okay. We have before us a resolution prepared by staff. And I have some adjustments to make to it. And since this is a very controversial issue, I'll read part of it. A resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista. And I'm making a change, amending the urban growth boundary. Whereas the Commission held a public hearing for the amendment of the urban growth boundary, and whereas the Planning Commission received the staff report, oral and written comments, public testimony, and citizen input on the proposed amendment to the urban growth boundaries, and whereas the Planning Commission discussed and reviewed the proposed amendment to the urban growth boundary and its relationship and consistency with goals, objectives, and programs of the current general plan, together with goals, objectives, and programs of the preliminary draft of the general plan, which will establish a future growth framework to 2035. And whereas the Planning Commission, based upon the oral presentations, written comments, public testimony at the public hearing, and information in the staff report, the proposed amendment to the urban growth boundary dated May 2014, find that in light of the whole record before the Planning Commission, there is no evidence that the amendment to the urban growth boundary will have a significant impact on the environment of the surrounding and immediate area. Now therefore be resolved that the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista does hereby approve the amendment to the urban growth boundary, and I deleted for Rancho Vista project. I don't want to have the name of the development because that's not what this was about. It was about moving a line. What we put behind the line is another ballgame. Now, if you recall from the last meeting, I was very concerned about process. As you know, I'm a professional planner by education, training, and experience, and I'm very supportive of the law. I had to support it for 36 years. So, I was very concerned about, can we do this? Staff went through and did a review of several of our comments, policies, objectives, goals of the existing general plan, and I believe they did a good enough job to support the moving of the urban growth boundary line.
Based on fact, based on evidence.
Based on what was approved and based on what we're going to do and why we're going to do it. I think one of the key things is development of the south isn't going to happen for a while. That freeway, we don't know. They might want to put a bridge there. They might want to put a tunnel there. We don't know. But we do know that development south of the line will not be contiguous to development that exists. So it'll be starting a little node here and node there. That is sprawl. So that focuses to the north, and that's where a lot of the policies said if there's nothing down, nothing else, then you have to look this way.
And this is a recommendation to City Council. Isn't that it?
No.
Or not?
No. It's to approve.
To approve. It
It's
approves, and our decision here
the urban
tonight
growth boundary.
is final without any further review.
No, anything that we do is appealable to the City Council.
I see. Then it will be.
But it's for the city of San Juan Bautista, not for development.
Yeah, that's what I said. We're not talking developers or development. We're talking about we can't use that property to fulfill the goals of the general plan unless the urban growth limit line at this point goes where it's shown.
If we change the resolution, does it match what we said we were going to do on the agenda?
Well, the agenda was pretty general.
Was it?
And we have discussed everything, and everything has been summarized in our resolution.
To show the city's ability to provide.
See, a lot of that will be done in the environmental impact report.
I know that.
But there's no point in looking up there unless you know a development could go there, and the line says, yes, it could go there if you can support it, if there's water, which there isn't at this point. And like the developer said, this isn't going to happen overnight. There are issues to be dealt with. And water is one of the major issues.
But you see,
But if we didn't ever want anything up there, we would not do this.
Could you explain to me why in the staff report it says action required, receive and review staff report, receive input and testimony from public, evaluate policies of the 98 general plan, and consider adoption of a resolution recommending to the City Council amending the urban growth boundary?
Well, I think if you look in the staff report, all of these
Page
policies are listed.
Yes, but
And
right here, it says recommending to the City Council, amending the urban growth boundary. Is that the next step, or is this the final?
It was probably an overstatement of all of your actions. We always automatically recommend to the City Council for final there, and it was probably a carryover because the urban growth boundary is a planning function. It's not a city council function there. And so when you approve the amendment of the urban growth boundaries, and that's final.
I realize it's just a staff report,
Yeah,
it's
right.
part of our review,
Yeah.
and that it is not one of the legal documents and so forth. It's just that I thought that the step tonight we were taking was going to follow that plan, and that, but I am finding out now this is a final on urban growth boundary in that direction to fill in the city limits edge.
That's correct, and that is,
Okay.
probably maybe an oversight on my part, because when we did the urban growth boundaries for the industrial on the San Juan Hollister Road down there by the Mission RV Park, that was done by the Planning Commission, and that was final. And it was more of a planning tool.
Oh,
5B.
It's on
don't
page
know what
4,
she's saying right
staff report.
Okay.
So,
Well, like I said, the staff gave us a resolution. The Planning Commission has the final say on the resolution. I showed you 2 major changes I made and recommending to the commission if they use this document. So staff reports are what they are. They're background information for which we make an informed decision,
I see.
and this is how we're going with it.
Okay.
If the council calls us on it, fine. We can talk some more. Okay. I will entertain a motion for some action by the commission.
Okay.
I want to look at the resolution again.
You want to make, I'll make a motion.
One last
Yeah.
thing, too, before we go. You have this proposed amendment staff report. Even though this is exempt from CEQA, there's an awful lot of stuff in here they seem to have gone through as if it was a project, and there's a lot of questions that have been asked and commented on over and above, and I think that's even a better job than we.
As I went through the staff report, really appreciated the fact that it calls my mind back to the general plan that has policies related to each one of the elements, and then it has a program. That's how you do it. The implementation is there as well.
That's a model we should follow.
And
for
it
every-
is, yes, and it makes understanding your staff report much easier as we go into this month of deliberation, 2 months, 3 months, whatever we've been through. Thank you.
Okay. So, Chairman entertains a motion for action.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2014-10 to approve the urban growth boundary for the city of San Juan Bautista.
To
As
amend the urban.
I'm sorry, amend.
Very good. So you want to add for the city of San Juan Bautista on the
Yes.
bottom? Okay.
That's my motion. To approve urban growth boundary.
Okay. Now, in that resolution, in the now therefore be resolved, I recommended the deletion of the project name. Is that included in yours?
Yes.
Anywhere?
In the title.
Rancho Vista project.
In the title as well as the now or therefore be eliminate the job title of the Rancho Vista project.
But you may want to put in for the city of San Juan Bautista.
For the city of San Juan Bautista, correct.
Yes.
In both
Okay,
places.
so, you looking at the resolution?
Oh, yeah.
Previous page.
Wait a minute. Okay.
Now therefore be absolved.
Oh,
Scratch for the Rancho Vista project.
right.
Delete that. And
Okay.
then you want for the city of San Juan Bautista?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I think we should add one more whereas right before the noun therefore is what I think Chairman Franco brought up a good point is whereas is the amendment of the boundary is exempt under the CEQA guidelines that follows our recommendation. That the amendment of the urban growth boundaries is exempt from the CEQA under Article 18, Section 15262.
Okay.
So we got it?
Yeah. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. We did a roll call
Deep
vote.
sigh. Bless you.
Salud.
Bless you.
Salud.
Commissioner Guevara?
Aye.
Commissioner Galarte?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Madaris?
Aye.
Commissioner Franco?
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes unanimously.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to comment about the staff report is just another, I'm going to be using this in the future as we continue to go into this
The
projects and what have you for this boundary that's being moved out. And there's a lot of good, brings up the general bound policies, and there's a lot of good things in here that will help us to make sure that we stick to our general plan, and also probably raise up a lot of questions that we need to address as we go forward.
And I think it's good for the public to realize that our decisions aren't so arbitrary, that it always has to come back to the general plan and how this supports our goals.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the state law its intention when they started saying you provide findings.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just says move to approve. Move to approve because we have made the following findings a fact, not just folksy stuff. Okay, the next item on the agenda, there is one, is it's an action item. Consider recommending to the City Council a contract agreement with California Polytechnic State University to prepare an environmental impact report for the draft 2035 general plan. Staff.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, we brought this to you last month and had this in front of you to basically get a recommendation from the Planning Commission to the City Council. Per your request, we wanted to clarify that EIR most definitely was an environmental impact report, which is reflected in the research agreement at the very beginning, just to make that clear that it is for an environmental impact report. Also, the question had popped up about why the research agreement contract is called a research agreement, and so I had reached out to Cal Poly and asked them why it was labeled that way, and basically what it came down to was that if they were to call it consulting for the City of San Juan Bautista, the Cal Poly Corporation would take a larger percentage of that money that goes to doing the work. Calling it a research agreement, all of that money gets funneled into the department. So it was kind of a matter of wording, which this way that is presented tonight, it gives more funding or money back to the department for the work that's being done. I would imagine if we were to push to have it be changed to something else, that the cost may go up to balance out that percentage that would be lost to the department. So that was the kind of...
Well, it's still amount to the same end product.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. But that's the background on why it was labeled a research agreement.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we would be looking for a recommendation from the Planning Commission to go with Cal Poly's proposal for an environmental impact report for the draft, and that's slated to happen sometime this fall.
I'd like to make a suggestion, page A1, under scope of activities, change daft to draft.
Say again.
Daft should be draft.
A1?
Page A1.
You have an A1?
It's after attachment A. It is attachment A.
Oh, attachments.
Yeah, sometimes words are...
Well, the computer picks up.
Is it in the agreement?
It's under scope of activities, Is it right
Yeah,
behind the
it's-
attachment A.
Oh, okay. A1?
The council might
Yeah,
not want to
that's in
sign
the,
that one.
That would be daft.
attachment A.
Okay.
Which line? We didn't, which line?
2.
Daft, it should be
Oh,
draft.
daft.
Looks like a
Oh.
crazy
Well,
method.
perhaps.
Daft.
They don't want to make any daft.
And any daffy
decisions.
environment?
Yeah, we got to go back to those English professors.
Even if they can't find it.
Daft? Is that a correct word for somewhere?
Don't be daft.
No,
No?
As in
It's
duck?
crazy.
that's a very
So-
good catch.
Yeah, that would be reason enough not to sign it. We don't want no
Yeah,
crazy
there
stuff
you go.
coming here. Got enough
Well, you
problems as
spelt
we
it,
go.
just a few lines later, you've spelt it correctly.
Yeah. Silly computer.
You're presuming, say,
Give the benefit of the doubt.
might be daft twice. Anyway. Okay, so you've reviewed this thing. We've gotten, like I say, I had concerns. I think some of us had concerns. Staff seems to have resolved the concerns we had, explaining why the procedure was used, why the language was used. I have no problem. I think the kids, the students did a good job on putting together the general plan. It still go up to the city council, planning commission, and the city council to make any amendments to it during the public hearings with the public input. So that's good. The other thing is you have to have an environmental impact report, and the fact that you've got students with professors with PhD levels who can back them up on what they have to present, how to research it. And I don't think this is the first one, so I think we're in good hands. Any other comments, commissioners? Is there any comments from the public regarding the offering a contract to the California Polytechnic to do an environmental impact report? I know no comments. Staff, commissioners? Okay, the chair entertains a motion for a resolution recommending action to the city council. The draft resolution is for recommending approval or recommending the contracting with the school, the university.
I'll move that city council approve the contract with Cal Poly to prepare an EIR.
Okay, I would say one thing. Spell out government code.
Oh, environmental impact report?
No, in the whereas. Oh, the resolution.
Oh, in the resolution.
Yeah. Let's
That's
see.
resolution number 11.
Let's see, 11. Okay. In the first one, whereas, the second line, state law, I think state doesn't have to be capitalized. does it?
I think it does, if it's in reference to California.
State law. Okay, and spell out government code. Everybody doesn't know what a GC is.
Oh.
Yeah, it's government code.
Yeah.
Section 63, 500 sec.
Perhaps we need to include, oh no we don't, we already have it. We have San Luis Obispo in the resolution portion.
So the motion is?
There's a second?
Were you asking for a second?
I made the motion.
Oh, did you already make it?
Yeah,
We're cool?
I moved. Did I move? No. I didn't.
You moved.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2014-11, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista to recommend to the City Council contracting with California Polytechnic State University, San Luis Obispo, Cal Poly, to prepare an environmental impact report, EIR, for the draft general plan. We have a bunch of whereases. Okay. On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I keep forgetting.
Commissioner
You can
Rivera?
say
Aye.
new stuff.
Commissioner Gallardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Medeiros?
Aye.
Commissioner Franco?
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, now we got some discussion items. I guess like discussion items and staff reports and comments. D'Ambrosio Vista PUD.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, just to kind of highlight, it's kind of an error on my part for not following up on the proper notification. I went and recorded the notice of intent, and that was done well in advance, but with all of the appeals and the water issues, I forgot to post it within the 10-day period. So I called the applicants and let them know that we're going to have to continue this to the August 5th. They agreed with it, and so it's been renoticed, and then we will make sure that it's posted properly so that you can take appropriate action.
Thank you. Okay, there's a draft 2035 general plan update. For future reference, I'd like to have that changed to general plan update because we're not updating the 2035, we're updating the 1998 one. So, the general plan update program for the draft general plan 2035.
Period. Is that right?
No, yeah, that's right, because it's a whole new document. It updates the 98, brings current thinking in, but it is the 2035 general plan.
We can just call it draft 2035 general plan and lose the update. Is that what you were recommending?
Yeah, leave the update out.
Okay.
For future reference.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. On the June 16th, we had a joint meeting of the Planning Commission and the City Council. And that was an interesting meeting. We had the Vice Mayor. He was one who chaired it, I guess, being the ranking person there. We had a lot of people. Did anybody count how many folks were there?
I did.
How many did you get?
I don't have that number on the top of my head. I think it was, I got it in my notes, probably 56 or something.
That was my guess, 50 plus.
I think it was 56.
Because it down to about 28 when we finally got into it. But there was free food, and let me tell you, free food brings them out of the woodwork. That's when you have to lock the doors.
It was good.
Anyway, so we had a lot of public. The professor made a presentation of the document, and then we had wide open public comments. This was not an action meeting. This was basically a meeting to accept the document in public. Probably could have been a meeting of the Planning Commission with the City Council invited, but doesn't matter. We got everything we wanted to say. We said, and we were heard, and so was the public. We've got on our staff report here about 28 different issues that came up. As people came up, I would jog down what they said. If they said it, three people said it, I only jogged it down once. I'm not into duplication. So if you pick up a copy of that staff report, you'll see generally what they were talking about regarding the document and the professor's presentation. At this point, I'm going to ask staff to keep you posted on the rest of it. But that was the first one. I guess what we're looking for now is we have a general plan update program. We have a document that's going to be evaluated for environmental concerns. We also need to talk about projects that are in the hopper, because we have amendments to the urban growth boundary. We have an annexation involved. I don't know if we have any special districts involved. We've got a school involved. And all these things are going to have to be brought together so that projects can continue under our new documents. But let's hear from staff. Fill in all the details.
Thank you for the intro. That was definitely well covered from what was put in the staff report as well. Where we're at currently from that meeting that was held on June 16th and the comments that we heard from that meeting, we're able to work with Cornelius and a few of the students who are making the final edits. What the plan is coming forward is the somewhat final draft is going to be put on the website. I'm hoping maybe at the end of this week, maybe at the end of next week, but basically the next week we plan to circulate it around for the month of July. And all comments are welcome from the public and the Planning Commission as well as City Council. But from having that June meeting, that's where we're looking to kind of get people's thoughts on the draft plan. And so the document that we're sending out again, staff feels is going to be a pretty well-inclusive document, and we look to get the plan, the draft accepted at the next Planning Commission meeting, which would be August 5th. And basically, yeah, we'll have that time for comment period during the month of July, and then we'll have a couple of days to respond if there's anything significant, and that's kind of where we're at. As far as when that plan will be released, we have an email distribution that people that have indicated that they are interested in the process throughout, which there's, I think, probably over 100 emails on there, as well as I know there's some folks that don't have email that prefer having a printed out copy, so we'll provide those. The library. Yep, we'll provide those to those folks, but then also there'll be a draft copy here, City Hall, the library. We'll probably put one in Hollister as well.
I would suggest putting 2 in our public library. There's a lot of people here, and some people just like to see it in hard copy. I think Hollister Library, that's a good idea too. Yeah, like I said, you make sure that if somebody wants it online, it may take up half their memory, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's.
And I would suggest one thing: if we're going to do that, line numbers and dates on all the pages.
Amen.
So that we don't end up saying, well, my document says, well, no, this is the newest one, and I don't want to end up dealing with that at a public hearing. Yeah, the final draft, the final document can be without line numbers, but I think the draft ought to have line numbers.
And make sure the maps are identified carefully, because what we found in some of the work today didn't understand that.
I think it'll be good for staff too. If somebody says page 22, line 15, you're not looking, you got it right in front of you.
So the EIR won't be available for about a year?
The EIR document, basically, once we accept and have what we feel is a final draft of the general plan, basically we're saying that, hey, okay, it's ready to look at with the environmental process. And then more or less, I think it'll be a similar situation to what we experienced with the general plan, which was within about 6 months. From this fall, we would have probably an environmental impact report put together, and then we have a few months following to kind of adjust it and so forth. But through that whole process, there'll be several meetings and things like that. So,
if this doesn't take effect until 2015, is there any rush to approve the general plan?
Say that again.
If the document doesn't take effect until 2015.
It would go immediately.
You mean the general plan itself?
The general plan. We are going to have a public hearing on August 5th to consider recommending to City Council to accept the final draft. Will we be ready to do that?
To accept.
Well, you're just accepting it. So we're saying it's a good enough copy to look and do an environmental impact report on
But
it.
we can still work on it.
You're not approving it.
Okay.
You're accepting it.
Okay.
The approval would be probably summer 2015.
Okay. All right. I know I saw that somewhere, now I can't find it.
And then at that point, the past general plan is null.
and void.
And, yeah.
What I'd like you to do is to, for the commission, draw us out a sheet that lists all these different steps. so we have an idea. Right now, there's a period of time for review. There's a planning commission meeting to accept. Goes to council, orders, well, I guess the council has to authorize it because they're the ones that are going to cut the check. But all those dates should be down. We can modify it as time goes on. But the bottom line is to have, where are we going? At what point are we picking up side issues or, and things that are running parallel?
Okay. I'll bring that.
That was under coming up.
Yeah, that's right.
Call it a strategic process. Matrix. Timeline.
Okay. Do you have any comments? Well, first of all, anybody in public want to speak on this? This is not an approval issue. This is just if you have a comment to make based on what you saw at the meeting last time, meeting on the 16th. Same with commissioners. If there's anything significant that you want to tell staff, we can tell them because this is a discussion issue. Because we're not approving anything.
I would like to discuss the acoustics of the building in which the public sits. I won't go back. You can have a quorum without me.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm sorry that it worked out like that, but the alternative was to have it in here.
Yeah.
And I would feel derelict in my duties to have 30 people sitting out there in the cold, not being able to hear us.
There must be another room
Your
in
comments
town.
are duly warranted, and I think we're going to bring this to the city council, and we're going to have to address
Would the
the
library-
acoustics at the community center.
The library wouldn't hold
Yeah.
that many people, would it?
How about the VFW? How
The
about
acoustics there are not as good,
I
not
think-
very good,
But they're
but
better.
they're better.
Yeah.
what about the school?
The
That's
school has a
something to
room,
look
but
into.
I haven't heard anything in it lately.
Maybe that's a good point.
The
One of
native daughters can hold 100 people, not around a table.
But one of the people we met the other night at the meeting on the 16th was a new superintendent of the Aroma San Juan School District. He was very supportive of what we were doing. He was coming out, meeting the folks, and maybe he's got I settled with a gymnasium or, one of the classrooms or something that could hold, say, 100 people. We could set up the tables. And maybe for this duration of this project, since the school district is going to be a recipient of a lot of, exactions, funds.
The school across the street.
Oh, the
Catholic,
teaching center?
The teaching center.
I don't think those rooms are big enough.
Not big
We meet in
enough?
it regularly, and I don't know if they have something we can ask.
It might be there because between the two classrooms, there is a folding partition that opens. And,
Are the acoustics good?
yeah, well,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the
We
question.
could do it in the church, maybe.
That whole wing is open.
Yeah.
Used to be a temporary church.
Yeah.
What would happen, Roger, if they put a T-bar ceiling in that building? It would help a lot, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes.
They can't take away the old dome, but make it more functional. If you put a T-bar ceiling in there and put curtains on it, you're going to make it a lot better.
Sounds good. Mr. Gerbrandt.
Yeah, I wanted to side with Commissioner Bellarti I'm on the General Plan Commission. Frankly, between the professor's accent and the acoustics, at least where I was sitting, I don't think I heard a complete sentence the entire evening. And it was, I felt like I was wasting my time there, even though I was vitally interested in the subject matter and invested in it. It was totally not productive. I do have two suggestions, though. Is there any chance that Teatro Campesino, that could be used? The other possibility that would probably handle about 50 people is the Glad Tidings Church. So we do have buildings in town that could be explored, but aside from fixing the acoustics, which
might take longer.
Yeah.
The mission itself?
That's too big.
Huh?
That's too big.
No, but it's
I don't
got
know how
great
much it would cost
acoustics.
to fix the acoustics, but after,
You don't need a microphone.
any town member who's ever attended a meeting there probably want to contribute to a fund to get it fixed. So it's a pity, it's a lovely facility, but it's completely useless for meetings. I mean, I can't imagine holding anything but, I guess it used to be a roller rink. That,
You got it.
that probably worked well. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
If Roger would go back to the original plan, there is a acoustic plan in there, but we couldn't afford $900 and some thousand dollars to fix it up. So.
In the renovation project, yes.
Yeah, part of that was balancing having a large enough location that, you know, we wouldn't have another cost, you know, try to keep things low for taxpayers. But I totally understand the concern, and I share the same feelings with Larry. And so we're trying to balance that throughout the whole general plan, because we were there, you know, 5 times I think total. But with any future meetings, you know, with some of the recommendations that were brought up this evening, we'll check to see if there's maybe another free location that they could support future meetings, especially speaking with the new superintendent. I think he would probably be more than happy to participate as the past superintendent was part of the General Plan Advisory Committee and engaged. So thank you for the recommendations, but I think it also does bring awareness to the facility that we do have, and not, I mean, I know it's not on the agenda, but I think it is something to, the upgrade needs to happen, because there's people renting that facility now for different events, and I would imagine that they may not be returning. That's just an educated guess, but so that's something that's on Roger and I's list of things to remedy.
Okay. Well, thank you, Commissioner. I concur with your comment and with hers. Again, I moved to get the meeting out of here for the reasons stated. So at least they weren't cold. Couldn't hear, but they weren't cold. Okay. Is there any other comments on this one? So we're going to go through with it until the meeting in August. It'll be online by the end of the week.
A week or two.
If it goes too far, you're going to have to run in September.
No, I understand that.
Because we've got to have at least 30 days, you know, to run it, to comment on it. And then, well, okay, we'll worry about setting a public hearing then, until we hear from you. Okay. Commissioners, anything else you want to talk about that general plan presentation? Comments? Or I'm glad that we talked about that building, the acoustics, and I think that was proper because it had to do with the public understanding what was happening.
When we did that project, it come in, we put out for bid, it was almost $1 million. So when I took it over, we did it for $250,000. We cut out a lot of stuff.
Acoustics being one of them.
Well, I'll tell you that the VFW is going to be getting a new roof on their building, and that's a plus. Maybe we can get them to help us with soundproofing.
I wonder if the bar would be open. That'd be even better.
What are they going to go
There'll be a lot of happy people.
Do you know what they're going to go with?
It's going to go with something like
The brewery.
no, it's a tile. No, it's some kind of a tile that looks like Spanish tile, but it isn't. It's a what do you call it?
It's a metal
Simulated.
Metal shingle that look like tile.
It's going to look like it, but I think it's going to be a what's that other word? It's composite. I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the city offered them the tile from the other building, and I understand the roof, the structure won't accommodate the weight of the tiles. So, but anyway, that would be another option. I mean, the VFW has been very supportive of community events, and they're all in the city.
Is that property in the county or the city? County, huh?
It's in the city.
It's in the city? Because part of the cemetery goes into the county.
Yes.
They drew the line.
They redrew the line.
See, just make sure that, when you start doing annexations, we make sure of all those little issues that are picked up. And that way Roger can do one massive thing, and get it adopted at one point.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to propose that that we put these books in a display of what we've been doing and where we're going in the general plan, some of these documents that people just can see and spur their ideas to go to the library and read them.
And open that 65
some of the
to the page
these-
that had the map showing 3rd
the
Street.
actual old plans that we have in the
What
museum.
year was that?
1965, this is how big it was.
I was in the jungle in those days.
And this is a draft of the one we're working on. We've been living with. Here's the environmental impact, and some of these documents, and then comment. These are available on. This is where we've been. This is where we're going.
Is that possible?
In that space?
This, sure, Kenna, you've been picking it up.
I've been doing it until she did it, but now I'm back thinking the Historical Society has these documents, and we would like to put them in.
I support it.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Then if no other comments, we'll go to the next one. Cal Poly Studio projects. That's way above me.
Yeah, so just to kind of give a quick overview, we had 7 students that wanted to implement parts of the draft general plan as part of a studio class. I think we had 2 students present last month, but right now all the students have submitted to me all of their final drafts, and I was kind of in this pickle because I had probably almost 400 pages of materials for the Planning Commission, so I decided not to print that out and put it in the packet, but that they're, with the discussion this evening, I had a few recommendations, but I also wanted to see what topics that the commissioners would be interested in to get a printout to kind of look over and get your comments on it. But
I'd like to make one before you go too far.
Okay.
I'd recommend that you contact each one of the students and say, look, the Planning Commission would like a 1-page summary. Not 2, not a half, 1 and no more. Until you get 2, you just tear off the bottom one. But with 1 page each, we have a summary of what's there, and if that one ever comes up, we know where the other 400 pages are. But this way, even the ones that have already done it say, look, the commission wants, and 1-page summary. 1-inch margins, 12-point type.
Numbered.
Pages numbered.
Lines.
Lines numbered. But can you see where I'm coming from? And
Yeah.
that way you have it on file. If somebody brings it up, like I say, we may not be on the commission next year. Then he brings it up, said, we have one. Is that what you talked about? Yeah, here's the other 300 pages.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was in the packet in June 10th. Because I had kind of, unless they didn't make it in there. But I have to go back and check because I had collected, I went down the week before a special meeting of the Planning Commission to basically get a verbal presentation from the students, and they had their other fellow classmates as well as some other personnel. But anyways, they had given me the 1-pager, and I hope,
1 page on each?
yeah, 1 page each. I think last month I included in the packet, but it may have not been in there. But I'll double check.
But this way,
if not,
they can run the detail to the 1 page, and it's a good exercise too. Be succinct, because let's face it, you're looking at resumes, you fall asleep about the 10th page or the 2nd page. So precise, and that is a planning tool. Be precise.
Well, I'll resend those if they haven't already.
And then you get us one of each, and then, like I said, you've got them in the master file, and, and plus their names are on there for historical purposes.
Could we ask them to add, if they use a person in town as a resource, a reference?
No, that would be in the whole report.
The whole-
This is just a straight summary.
Because I would like to know if the farmer's market feasibility study person ever talked to Greg Becchio. Probably never heard of his name, but he is the guy who started Natural Selections, and he has a very big farmer's market business. And he's local. So just...
No, again, it would, this is what the student is pushing, and to get into detail, I think that's detail, but you can get the word to him.
That was last
You
meeting.
want to modify his report, get a straight A instead of an A minus.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry, staff, did you want to continue on that?
Yeah. So exactly what Georgiana was just referring to was what I was going to propose, which was these certain documents might be a lot more useful to certain groups or certain folks that may be interested in doing a farmer's market. I mean, if this gentleman, Greg Becchio, has experience in it, but doesn't maybe have the time to start another farmer's market in San Juan, that document is kind of probably all of his knowledge that he has, put into that document. Maybe it would be good to see what his recommendations are from taking a look at the document and making it that much better to say, hey, give it to a group and let them run with it. But anyways, my recommendations, there's a few of these that are good for staff to look at, but then there's other specific reports that may be good for other committees. For one example, the economic strategy plan that was put together, I would like to forward that to our San Juan committee to have them be able to use that document. The farmers market feasibility study, possibly passing it on to the strategic planning committee. The parking study, passing it on to the city council and all the other stakeholders.
The stakeholders committee.
That we plan on getting together. And so, yeah, that's basically what I was looking for discussion tonight, which, Ernest brought up the great point about having the one-pagers, which gives you that summary, and it's a lot easier than a 60, 70-page document to
And I
review.
think another good thing is for the students, not just an exercise, but you got the word to people who normally don't read student papers, and all of a sudden it's there, contacts. And so, yeah, I'd like to see this thing when it's all finished.
So I guess the goal for me was just to make sure that this work, I know there's good things within each document, and I just want to make sure it gets utilized as those documents were put together implementing our draft general plan. So that's...
Yeah, unfortunately, they usually sit up on a shelf until they're pushed off for the new class. So at least this way they know all their efforts were not in vain. They added to the body of knowledge and hopefully making quality of life better for a lot of folks.
I think the parking one would be interesting for somebody to look at.
Okay. Let's see what's next on this agenda.
Recycling.
How about recycling zoning code update?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, just as a follow-up, we just want to let you know that we're bringing this to the city council and we're adding the additional classification. The old zoning ordinance just differentiated a recycling facility, and we felt that we should have a recycling facility processing and a recycling facility drop-off. And we've allowed the drop-off to be permitted use in the commercial and mixed use with a S designation on it, which would include site and design review.
Good. When do you think it'd be bringing that up for?
That'll be at the July
August
15th City Council.
Oh, City Council.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. Okay. What else is on this agenda? Parking and the city update.
So last month we had reached out and spoken with the city council, and this upcoming city council meeting will be having the draft letter that will be going out to the stakeholders that we had kind of indicated. And so we just wanted to follow up to let you know that the wheels are in motion to bring those parties and those stakeholders together to discuss parking.
Good. Okay. Brewery update.
Just as a follow-up, the owner got a little bit sideways on his contractor on doing the site grading. He has finally signed a contract with it, and so he will be commencing the construction very shortly. I've been pushing him very hard. I keep reiterating that the good weather is quickly eroding, and if he doesn't get going to finish it up before the winter rains go,
El Nino will be here.
I think you'll see a big
he's
blue
aware
tarp.
of that, and we're going to push him pretty hard to complete the parking and the drainage and all the amenities that go with it, including the lighting.
Yeah, tell them a blue tarp over the building is not an acceptable option.
Yes.
Okay. Future agenda items, I think we've heard most of them. Anybody want to add to that? The body of knowledge for something to put on the agenda? Okay. Commissioners' comments. Good comments?
I just, having viewed the June 10th meeting through CMAP, I just wanted to thank...
16th.
Was it the 16th? No, it was the 10th. It was the 10th.
Oh, that was the planning commission.
Thank the public for their oral and written comments about the urban growth boundary in Christopher Ranch. We take it all into account. We appreciate everyone's voice. And you've been silent tonight.
Richard Fox?
We must be doing it right.
Okay.
We're doing something right, see? Okay.
I got one. I'd like
Wait
to
till
thank
next time.
Roger for the new design of the parking in San
Yeah.
Juan Bautista.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
You mean on
There's more to come.
McCollum?
Yeah, and another
Washington?
one, Washington.
And Washington, right.
You added quite a few parking spots.
Yes.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, Matt and I have been looking at it for a long time, and I figured with the emphasis that you have directed to the city council, we felt that this would be the catalyst to get everybody thinking about parking.
Yeah, something can be done. Yeah.
There we go.
Sir?
Can that parking be expanded down, further down McCollum, in front of the little church?
And
That's
I was going to say more to come. We've already identified that in McCollum between 3rd and 4th, and from 4th to 5th.
Yeah, it's a big project, but we started.
Yeah.
We started, and I think that's more important.
Every
That
step helps.
we're doing something.
Good.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
At the last meeting, we talked about a historic overlay district. I did a little research on that. Vanda also looked it up, and I think it might be a valuable tool for us to use because it would be, in our case, it would be a design review of everything that's going to happen within the entire city limits rather than just within the historic district downtown. That would be the concept to use. What triggered my thought on this was that when I am coming in on First Street and looking at the new house on First Street, I see a McMansion front porch, and I wonder why staff didn't look at what happened at Creek Bridge, which was keep it low, keep it country, and keep it within the design of
Going up in North Street.
North Street.
and
Same-
on North
same-
Street
same
also,
design.
they, apparently the people just came and staff looked at it and did not requiring any further review by design review committee.
Well, some things,
Didn't have public comment.
some things don't require public comment.
I know.
And I think it's up to the commission to do something about it. I mean, you can regulate the size of houses on a floor area ratio, so many square feet versus the lot, or limit your stories, not more than so many, or a height limit. But if you don't have those things in place, it's Wild West. But you're right. No, that this was a key issue of planning when I was in it.
I think it's going to cause too many problems. You're starting to
Sure.
tell people how to build their homes and what to do with their homes.
We are.
You know?
But that's the
I could
police
see it
power.
in the historical district, but not in the rest.
No, but that's the police power of the state, which comes down to us through the state and the commission.
I think the issue here is that it was in a residential R1.
I know where it is.
Within the height restrictions, 2 stories are permissible in that. Each home can build a 2-story. The developer elected to build a single in the back and then a 2-story.
That is exactly the issue, because it didn't require review. And a review would have meant a public opinion, an open hearing, which I'm all in favor of as often as we can.
So I dealt with one where the guy painted the house white, and he used a 12-inch dinner plate and put polka dots over the entire house. And they screamed, and I says, look, you chose not to have design approval ordinance in there, so there's nothing we can say.
So that's where we are today.
We have
I'm
property
hoping
right,
that-
they were talking about their property values, and neighborhoods going to hell in a
I think
handbasket.
Roger does have height restrictions and stuff, right? That you got a code that you go by.
Right,
Yeah.
but I'm just talking about, I know that the design review for Creek Bridge made them turn the houses around and face the street,
Well, then we should
and
have one
all
in your
looking
house.
porches. My front porch does face Franklin Street, my back porch faces 2nd Street.
And your garage is right on the street, so we could have shot me
Yeah,
down.
you could have shot me down.
I was
But she's in
born
the
then.
historic district.
But in the historic district, I went completely through twice or 3 times the review process, and no one said I had to move my old garage back from where it is.
So, but keep that in mind. If you want to, this stuff is, whatever is there now. It'll be there till the city goes. But in order to keep it from happening again, you have to have an ordinance or some regulation, or even a general plan policy that says, hey, we don't want McMansions in this town. We want houses that fit that neighborhood. I mean, what if somebody put, a 3-story building next to your historical building?
Well, don't we have to change our policy so that we have everything reviewed for the public?
You could.
That's what a historic overlay district would do if it encompassed the whole town.
It's not a good idea. Because
3 to 1, 2 to 1.
I think maybe the terminology, a historical district is design review.
Design
Review
overlay.
rather than a historical, because you're looking at new subdivisions,
Yeah.
new buildings, and it really has nothing to do with historical.
Well,
It's that the design review is looking at fitting in with the neighborhood.
I was thinking in terms of the HRB, Historic Review Board.
When we hardly even meet anymore.
Yeah.
Is this
And
some-
I'm sure the fact that I brought this to attention in a public meeting, that the next time staff looks at a tall front porch, you might say to the people,
You sure you
did
want
you
to do
think
that?
about this? How
But-
does it fit into the neighborhood?
But they can say, we thought about it, and that's what we want.
Exactly,
See, but
right now.
like Roger's right, the term is design approval.
Mm-hmm.
You could require every house to come here for design approval.
Oh, I see.
All new construction would be reviewed by the planning commission. And if you said, that's too high, that's too big, you're not meeting your side yard requirements, et cetera, that's where it would stop. But without it, if the zone says, we're 30 feet high, and they have 30 foot by 30 foot, and it's a box, a tower, we're hard pressed. And this has happened all over the country. People have more money, and they can't talk about being rich. They just make a big 9,000 square foot building. They say, this is my home.
So, Georgiana, are you suggesting another agenda item?
Well, last time I thought it was going to be on the future agenda, but I'm glad it wasn't, so I could just make comments
she's
right
trying
now.
to tell
You want to discuss it?
If you were building your house right now,
Yeah.
she's going to have the power to tell you what to do with your house.
No,
and what
I'm
it
not.
looks like.
That is
That's
not
what
what
it
I'm
comes down to.
suggesting.
We've got it right now. It's called building code.
That's right.
What I am suggesting, Pat, is that it comes before this board so that we can have public opinion
Every house?
expressed.
It's going to be built.
Why not?
Why
How many
would you
bed?
want to do that?
10?
Tell you what, this is the issue. If we can't discuss it here because it's too big.
Okay.
But we can put an agenda item saying, discussion of a potential design review process in the city. And that way we have an agenda item, and anybody who wants to speak about it, they come up and speak. and then we'll start getting some feedback.
Okay, thank you.
But if they don't come for general plan or
But at least we told them.
gas station, then
Yeah.
why would they come for a
Okay,
house?
it was just an idea, and thank you.
No, this,
I would like to see it go forward.
I think it's a good idea to
Okay.
explore.
staff, take care of that for us, put it on
What
the
is it?
agenda. Like, I said, I don't know where it's going to go, but at least it comes to the public. People have already seen these large buildings, and then we can get a lot of history of McMansions in America.
Could I have another question on a different entirely subject that came
You
up
may.
just now?
You may.
I mean, just within the last
That's what-
2 or 3 hours. After our decision, there is a 10-day appeal period, right? And during that time, if an appeal is made, what happens to the decision that we have just made? Where does it stand in review of our
If it's appealed-
recommendation?
If it appeals, they appeal your decision.
To city.
and go to the city council.
And what is our decision then over?
De novo, okay.
For example, when we went back to ARCO,
Yeah,
there were 42 conditions and so forth and so on. All of that is behind us then?
No, I think it has to do with the fact that our appeal ordinance says is that when it is appealed, it goes to the city council, and the city council can act in a de novo capacity, and they can amend, add to, delete, approve any and all conditions.
Okay.
It's
So
as
that's
if we,
how it
were-
read.
it's as if we never heard it.
As if we never heard it. Okay, that's what I want.
We want to change that ordinance.
I see.
You know, we want to change it to where if an appeal is filed, is the appellant has to show how the planning commission had erred in
Yeah.
specific terms.
Good.
And how do,
Address all, any and all,
We're going through that process right now at the gas station, right?
that is correct.
Yeah.
are we going through the, changing the ordinance process as well?
We're drafting up the necessary stuff to change it.
And will that go straight to council, or does it come here for, it goes straight to council, doesn't
We
it?
can bring it to you, you know.
I'd like to bring it up so we can have a resolution, saying, make it even stronger.
Recommend. Okay, so that is a process.
We have looked at a number of cities that have a similar task, and ours is a kind of a outdated appeal procedure, and it normally doesn't occur that way.
Okay.
See, we want them to show that the planning commission acted arbitrary, capricious, illegal, immoral, or what?
Right.
Didn't interpret the law right, didn't have the law. That's what you appeal on, is not that, I don't like it.
Yeah.
That's not
And
an
right now,
appeal.
it's just set up where you just question it.
Yeah, I just want to have you guys hear it again.
And what that does is it just prolongs and
It
delays.
takes out the need for a planning commission.
And like with the ARCO, they did not give any specifics, they just appealed it in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just ask for a second hearing.
So that can happen to any of our decisions in the future until the ordinance is changed, is that right? Because when people ask, I need to know that I have a straight story.
Just tell them they have the right to appeal anything.
No, they ask me, what has happened?
Oh, that's a different question.
Oh, you need to tell them to watch it on CMAP.
I do, but a lot don't happen. So, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other business, staff, do you have any comments you want to make besides what business?
Yep, I do.
Did they come?
He has one. Okay, we'll hear it.
Yeah. I just want to let the commission know and public know that I have a trip coming up. If I haven't shared with you already, it's a pretty extensive trip. Before coming on board with full-time being here in San Juan Bautista, I kind of had said, hey, I got this trip planned. It's been planned for probably about 5 years now. I got this trip coming up, but then, I was planning to basically have a leave of absence. But since then, things have been worked out to where I can continue helping out, given the technology with both phone and email, as well as accessing, computers. So I will be working at a lesser capacity, in the upcoming months, but I just wanted to let you all know that it's been definitely great, being a part of San Juan Bautista, and I hope to continue working into the future, but that, again, my capacity is going to be lessened, and you won't see my face, but probably might see my name on some staff reports and so forth.
That sounds like a farewell. Are these from you?
Well, no, they're not.
Oh.
They're not.
Are you going to be out of the area, or?
Yeah, I'm going to be out of the country.
Wow.
My wife and I, we deferred our honeymoon last year because she's going through a doctorate in physical therapy, and basically before she starts working somewhere, we kind of had the plan that we should go take some time and see what the world has to offer.
It's beyond San Juan.
And part of the trip is going to be focused on second language for me, and I've been studying Portuguese for quite a while. It's my my background, and so I want to go visit where basically my father's from and spend some time there with family and kind of make that connection, as well as since I've been on Rotary, I've been able to make some connections and look to do some volunteering with Rotary International, and yeah, so it's looking to be kind of a good trip, and planning it, like I said, for quite a while. Gifts for the wedding, we asked for money towards the trip and having these experiences before kind of settling down. So that's where I'll be for the next 7 months.
Wow.
When are you leaving?
The end of July.
End of July.
Yep.
Have
And
a
so-
wonderful time.
What about the other math?
Yep. So basically, we've been searching to find basically replacements, but we also wanted to increase staff levels just because Roger's been taking on kind of a lot of work, and as well for me, I've been definitely very busy, but that we would be bringing on a half-time person. His name's also Matt, so it makes it easy for all you.
This is our history,
And
isn't it?
and then the other person to be identified would be a full-time planner as well, and then I'm working at some capacity to assist, and yeah. So we'll be having some more help here in the office since there's been a lot of projects and a lot of things kind of slipping through our fingers, but we plan to make sure we get a hold of everything and keep San Juan moving forward. So.
Sounds good. Wish you well.
Thank you.
And hurry back.
I understand that our website is also being updated by one of the staff members, and I think that's going to be very helpful for all of us.
Yep.
We'll come back.
Yeah, no, that's the
hurry
plan,
back.
to come back.
You can send us pictures on a regular basis.
We didn't approve this, Do we get to approve it?
That's right.
We want to appeal.
Well, you can appeal anything, so.
Does
Gotta
your wife
talk-
have a presentation she want to offer us or something?
You got to talk to the boss.
Well, I'll tell you, I
just
congratulate
great,
you.
yeah.
I like I think travel really broadens your worldview, and I think that starting out in your career, expansion of worldview, you've worked for a city that cares for its people, and now you're going to see how other folks do it.
Yep,
Or have done it for
especially-
1,000 years.
Yep, especially with city planning, it's educational wherever you go, because you can see how things can be done correctly or incorrectly, and bring all that knowledge home. So
Especially going back to your roots. Okay.
So you're going to the mainland or are you going to the islands?
I'm going to the Azores. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
A lot of San Juanians were from the Azores.
Yep.
A lot of the
Yep.
original,
My dad's family
way back.
from Fayal, so that's where we're going to be spending most of our time.
My grandma.
Are you going to go too, Dad?
Yeah, for 10 days.
Oh, wow.
But I'll come right back. I'm not going to go around the world.
Wow.
Oh, great. Dad's coming along on the honeymoon, huh?
No.
So we wish you well, because we won't see you at the August meeting. You'll be gone. So this will
September,
be
October, November, December, January.
It's going to be uncomfortable for a while, but we'll
We'll
try to get
manage.
along without you.
Yeah.
We won't see your head popping
We still
up
got
over
Roger.
And the skateboard.
Yeah.
We got Matt who worked on
And Matt.
the general plan, and he's familiar with it.
The housing element?
Sharp kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, pretty cool dude.
Okay then, so we got a planning commission meeting here. I entertain a motion for action. For adjournment? Second?
I'll second.
We have a second. I don't think we need a roll call vote on this. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, what a great meeting. A relief.